Today is Tuesday, the 20th, and it's right before Thanksgiving.
It's not right before Thanksgiving. It's after Thanksgiving. Oh, no, wait. It's before
You're
Thanksgiving.
wrong.
It's definitely before Thanksgiving.
It's all a blur in my mind.
You're wrong.
It's, I wonder if we can still use the amazing intro that we did. So we got the date wrong, and we talked about assuming people's holiday meal of choice and how that is wrong.
You know what we should do? We should just lead this into that with the incorrect date to show our failures and not try to hide them.
Okay.
Today is Tuesday, November 18th, and is almost Turkey Day. And the word of the day, according to the gas station pump, is jaunty.
I need a new word. What's the word for when you improperly assume someone's preferred holiday meat? Holiday meal, I guess, because it might not be meat. It might be tofurkey.
I'll say we do ham and turkey, but I prefer turkey.
You can't make those kind of assumptions in this day and age.
Someone might get upset.
Well, that's why you should never offer strangers meals.
Well, that's not really in the spirit of things.
Spirit of what, Krista? Spirit of what?
You only offer them blankets.
Did you just assume that the whole world is in the Thanksgiving spirit?
Because not everyone is. We do have some Euro trash.
Maybe your colonialism is showing.
It might be.
Welcome to Level 1, where we have razor sharp wit that has rusted to a sad...
That's just a dull point.
I don't know. We got a lot of news this week, even though it is a holiday week here in the U.S.
Well, I bet there's some anti-colonialists among the people who are protesting Amazon's headquarters in New York.
Would you say that Amazon is colonizing New York? Is that what's going on?
That's how some people see it.
We should be investing in housing, not in helicopters.
Let's just comment here for a second on... The headline is New Yorkers protest Amazon HQ2. We should be investing in housing, not in helicopters, which we'll explain in a second. But Amazon is splitting their headquarters, is what they refer to it as, to two different cities. New York being one of them, in exchange for some fairly substantial subsidies, like $50,000 a worker, and they plan to hire something like 10,000 workers.
And they're getting double those subsidies. Once again, maybe, I don't necessarily disagree 100% with these New Yorkers, because it is ridiculous that the government is just handing Amazon handfuls of cash. But talk about a brilliant move from Bezos. I mean, he really is.
He's pitting the cities against each other.
He's an evil
Let
genius.
them fight.
Well, no, he's double dipping.
Yeah.
So, he got him to agree to all these things, and he was like, we'll take 2 of these. And he got it.
Well, but what's going to happen, though, then it's like, we're thinking maybe we'll just move to New York permanently. And then, Seattle's like, no. And then is there a back and forth there that eventually develops, where they're both trying to out-subsidy each other?
Well, it's Virginia. Yes. They're still in Seattle. So they actually have 3 now.
Yeah.
So, pretty incredible. The helicopter thing is because New York has some rules. They got a busy airspace, I guess. So they got some rules about, you can't just have a private helipad. Well, guess what Amazon gets to have?
a private helipad. Well, we've got some other news about another city that's playing this game a little differently, but perhaps...
Also a huge city.
Well, how about portrait of a city that didn't get an Amazon headquarters?
Tulsa! Yeah.
Remote workers can get a cushy apartment, free office space, and $10,000, but only if they move to Tulsa, which is, as we know, is a bustling metropolis.
Now, this may seem obvious to astute listeners, or watchers or whatever, but this is different than the Amazon thing. Tulsa is literally giving $10,000 directly to the people. What if Amazon was going to give $50,000 to the workers that they hired? I mean, that would go a long way to making people tolerate living in New York City, but I don't think they would have moved.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. Sorry, Amazonians.
Bezos needs more money.
But if you're looking to be a remote worker in Tulsa.
Yeah, so Tulsa seems to think that remote workers are really good tax donkeys, and they'll contribute a lot. So they want you to work elsewhere, but live in Tulsa. And that's a pretty sweet gig if you got a totally remote workspace. They're going to give you an office, an apartment, and $10,000. Get some furniture.
Yeah. That's your next big expense, isn't it?
Oh, listen. I'm spending so much money right now.
Tulsa, the city of Twitch streamers.
You could have just moved to Tulsa and remote it in.
There is an application process. I wish we could get in touch with those people and ask how many 50. Twitch streamers and stuff like that are going to apply.
They're only doing 50 people.
Oh, okay.
So I imagine it will be some serious competition.
Technically, we're Twitch streamers.
So they're expecting taxed income, so it's going to be whoever's the richest remote person, right? Probably.
So not Twitch streamers anymore.
Well, the right kind of Twitch streamers, I guess, would probably be fine. But
Is Amaranth going to move there?
There's the new girl that all of our Twitch lurkers are into, the one with Tourette's. Have you seen her?
No.
It is.
I don't look at our Twitch lurkers. You don't want to know what they talk about.
She's very pretty, so it's not just Tourette's. It's like really pretty girl with Tourette's. But there is something sort of endearing about her little tics, and she has trigger words. So like there's certain banned words in the chat, but if you can get one through, it'll just trigger her. And of course, the Twitch people love that. It's like a bot.
The higher tier subscribers are allowed to say that one time per stream.
Well, speaking of triggers, Donald Trump has done a new move. He's signed into law the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security. They use security twice in that name. That's not very good, is it? It doesn't roll off the tongue at all.
It's the best.
No.
We have the best names. Everyone knows it.
It's also not a very good acronym. CISA, Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency.
It's like a disease.
Yeah. It kind of is. It's a disease here in North America. Our government this is yet another agency that's not going to communicate with any other agencies about what is going on. Although it report to Homeland Security or something?
It
was
used to.
previously under Homeland Security under a different name, but now it has more autonomy, but it still will be under the Director of Homeland Security. So basically, I think it's a bigger budget that the taxpayers will endure and a little bit more autonomy, but more of the same. So excited about that.
Speaking of infrastructure,
Comcast forced to refund $700,000 to customers over misleading fees, surprising no one.
Well, it's surprising they were forced to give it back.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they were really forced to give it all back because it talks about how the fees went from like $1 to $6 over a period of time, and I don't think Comcast has that few subscribers. I mean, this is in Massachusetts, but I mean, I really think that it's like they're going to refund $700,000 right now, but the majority of the money, I would say that they were able to keep. And they're like, oh, it's all about transparency. We're transparent with the fees, but the fees are nonsensical, and the FCC won't do anything about it. It's really depressing.
Yeah. So, well, when they say transparency, we should clarify their defense is we added those fees in the interest of transparency, that's a weird argument. And the idea here is that, they put an advertisement out and it'll say, hey, get your cable and internet for $59.99. You get your bill and it's like $79.99. And there's all these little nickel and dime fees that drive it up there. So the base price, is $59.99. But Massachusetts is saying, no, that's illegal. That's false advertising. You got to give that money back. They're also going to have to pay some of these people because these people proved that those extra charges hurt them, like overdrew them or something like that. So they have to deal with all of that, which makes that $700,000 seem even lower.
Yeah,
when you factor that into it. Well, an amazing thing has happened in 2018. Never happened before in history. The Pentagon has been audited, and guess what they found?
The Pentagon has failed its first ever audit, and so this is a financial audit. So the Department of Defense has no idea where it's almost $2 trillion budget is going. It has no idea, pretty much, according to this audit. And also, their security stinks.
Cybersecurity in particular.
Cybersecurity.
So, yeah, they are, as you can imagine, it's a bunch of old bureaucrats running the Pentagon. They're terrible at computers. Absolutely terrible. And but they're good at wasting money. Amazing at wasting money.
It's like, hey guys, I've got an idea for saving lots of money that will actually make things less complicated. Nope, don't want to hear it.
Listen, I've got to go eat some cake in the conference room. We'll talk about this later.
They also talked about like sort of damage control. They were like, listen, we never expected to pass this audit. That wasn't realistic.
Should we?
So that makes us feel better, right?
Yeah. Should we be happy about that? I don't.
Well, speaking of the Pentagon and our overseers who work with the Pentagon, this young lady from Google.
I don't know if she really looks like a young lady.
No, she's very old.
This New York Times article, if you only read one news story this week, you should go read this, because this is the Google Cloud executive who sought the Pentagon contract. This is the one we've mentioned 3 or 4 times now, where Google wanted to help the federal government with things like AI and and finding the bad guys.
It was the image recognition,
but not really, because we're not going to make the call on killing people or whatever. But yes, image recognition and all this other kind of stuff. She has stepped down, but she has also stepped up into a new role at Alphabet, the parent agency of the place where she stepped down.
I think she was already chairperson at Alphabet, so she's out of the cloud industry. She
invented VMware.
Yeah, VMware. She was a co-founder of VMware. So she probably, this is not like an empty suit at the top. She knows some stuff. But she strikes a very...
would you use the word deep state?
Elitist profile. Yeah. She was the last person to pull out of a conference with the Saudi prince after the assassination. So somebody pulled her aside and was like, listen, you can't stay. This is a political shitstorm. You cannot do this. And she was like, but I'm his buddy. They're such good customers.
I think it was probably more sociopathic than that, because some super highly intelligent people are just like, it's business as usual in that area. Are we not aware of that?
Are we fazed by this?
She also, when they first started, decrying the AI Pentagon thing, her response literally was, it's only $1 million contract. Right?
Only.
It's like, what are you plebs getting up in arms about? We're barely making any money with this. I'm doing this for a favor.
Well, Google did buy her startup company for something like $390 million. So
yeah, she's doing okay. Plus, I imagine that position on the Alphabet board, there's a few shekels for that, right? She's going to get a little holiday bonus.
Some Chuck E. Cheese tokens.
There goes their monetization.
Well, one thing that we all have in common, I think this is one of the universal points of being an American, or maybe just being in Western civilization, is we all get and hate the robocallers.
It has gotten so bad. Okay, the headline is a new Senate bill would hit robocallers with up to $10,000, a $10,000 fine for every call. I want to know who's going to pay the fine for the people that are calling me back because the robocallers called them with spoofed caller ID, and they're calling me to try to figure out WTF, because that's the other half of the calls.
It's always old ladies who call. They're like, "Hello, you called me," and I'm like,
well,
"No."
They're the ones that haven't figured out what's going on.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you ignore the robocalls, that targets your number to be used for the next robocall. So
there's no way to beat the machines.
Yeah,
you can't win.
I literally had one yesterday or the day before where I explained it to the old lady because it seemed like a nice old lady, and then after 3 or 4 sentences of back and forth, she hung up on me, and it's like,
whoa,
I don't. What
just goes, what a nerd, and just
I mean, that's basically how it was.
Okay, loser.
I could hear the 1983 era Bell telephone, the clang right before it cut off. So
the $10,000 probably isn't going to stop anybody. Now, the one good thing from this bill, and probably the reason it'll never pass, is they want the phone companies to take some sort of hand in this. And the FCC agrees, amazingly. Ajit Pai. I think every time Ajit Pai, anytime he sees a slam dunk PR thing, it's well, nobody really cares. I don't really, this doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt my political career. Let's just dunk that one in for a PR move. Yeah. So they want the phone companies to confirm that a number is actually coming from that number.
Which is trickier than it sounds with the telephone infrastructure that we have here in the U.S. Infrastructure, quotation marks.
And speaking of infrastructure, specifically cat litter boxes, toilets, and otherwise cleanliness of an embassy, Julian Assange is in trouble.
Oh, no.
U.S. is optimistic it will prosecute Assange. I almost said persecute.
Struggling to see.
She's distracted by the appearance of the photos.
When we were organizing the stories, he kind of looks like a parakeet. I mean, and far be it from me to make comments on appearance, but I mean, I just couldn't unsee it once I thought parakeet.
I know you can't read this. Do you know who that is? I mean, he's really big in the news.
It's Robert Mueller.
Does that ring any bells, Krista?
Nope.
Well, I'm just going to tell you should unsubscribe from this news program right now. Literally right now. Just
they told me I have to be here.
So, this was actually a leaked document. They did not mean to put Assange's name in the document, but they did accidentally. And what it showed was they're planning to charge him in the hopes that Ecuador will then give up on his protection.
It wasn't clear to me if they were planning to charge him or if they had actually already charged him under seal, and it's just been under seal forever.
The seal was a part of it. And they said they needed the seal because if not for the seal, all of his minions would ferret out the information like they did all those government secrets, which is hilarious because they leaked it themselves.
But, I mean, that's so disturbing because that's what he's been saying all along. And he's looked a little bit like a crazy person for not, like, the whole reason he's in the embassy is because of quote-unquote trumped-up charges from Sweden. Those charges have been dropped, but the UK still wants to arrest him for avoiding arrest for the other thing, but normally those charges wouldn't have had arrest anyway. They would have just wanted to do an interview. So he didn't feel like he could safely go back to the country to do an interview. So it's a really messed up story overall. If he was right about that all along, that's shocking.
Of course he's right about that. It's obvious what they want him for.
Yeah.
Also, Ecuador gave him citizenship.
Yeah.
But he just can't get from the embassy to Ecuador because the Brits won't protect him.
Because probably they've known about the sealed charge all along. That just seems crazy.
Well, you know, they're best buds with the U.S. intelligence people.
But why? Like he just seems like such an inconsequential target. Like, is he actually some sort of
It's
international?
about sending a message.
He embarrassed so many powerful people.
Yeah,
like, that's his crime.
Meanwhile, we've got the murderers of the news guy, the report, like the writer. No, that doesn't. It's embarrassment is okay.
The other thing, and this was phenomenally stupid. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. He sued the Ecuadorian government. That's the only thing keeping you out of a CIA black site, and you sued them.
Maybe he's not got anything to do since he doesn't have internet. He's been in the embassy and he's just huffing paint all day at this point.
I
Eating the lead paint chips.
That would be something that would explain it.
It's got to be taking its toll.
Well, another thing that's taking its toll is this wireless slowdown. We're tired of it. And so are these 4 senators.
Ars Technica has got this amazing article. It's like, wireless throttling. Senators asked 4 major carriers about video slowdowns. And it's Ron Wyden and some of the other ones. But some of the senators involved here were like, man, we should somehow make sure that the wireless carriers are treating everybody's data the same. And it's like, that's the thing that the FCC... Are you not paying attention?
The answer is no. No. They're not paying attention. They're paying a little bit of attention. I imagine this started before the election.
Yeah.
Right? So probably they're just like, hey, guys, you know that we're just forget about that. That thing we talked about before, don't worry.
Net neutrality.
Yeah.
And it's wireless video is one of the weird ones because, you know, I'm not sure. Like, okay, a 50 gig wireless data plan, okay. And I don't necessarily want to stream YouTube in 4K on my mobile device. So I would love the preference of saying, hey, when I'm on my mobile device, only give me 720p. But I don't think as the consumer, these plans really give the consumer control of that. Netflix does, but not any of the other services.
Yeah. Well, and some people, I mean, we're entering into a world where some people only have wireless internet.
Yeah.
So those people are going to be watching all these things.
50 gigs is a Nazi worth of data.
I heard that as like not Nat's ear, but like how the guy from Inglourious Basterds, the Brad Pitt character, said Nazis. I was like, what does National Socialism have to do with it?
I was just thinking that's pretty Appalachian for for this program.
Nazis.
Something joke about a Jeep pie. I don't know.
Well, it's always a heartwarming story when we can reach across the pond and join together and improve the lives of all people. And that's what's happened today with Mr. Ajit Pai.
The FCC has paved the way for improved GPS accuracy. I want to know what happened to GLONASS.
So we have, what's their thing called? Is it Galileo or something like that?
I thought it was GLONASS.
Glowing ass?
Galileo. So they have Galileo, we have GPS. I think Galileo is newer, so it's much more accurate. But for the first time ever, we're going to share data between the two so that GPS becomes much more reliable.
Woo!
How exciting. And speaking of things floating around in space, we're going to get a lot more of them.
Elon Musk's SpaceX has won the FCC approval to deploy 7,518 satellites. Elon Musk promised to try to reduce the amount of space debris because there's a lot of it.
I think won't this make our planet look junkier to the aliens? They're like, man, that's trashy having that many satellites on your.
It's kind of like
orbit.
having cars on blocks in your yard.
Or Christmas lights year round. It's like, God, it's a lot of satellites.
Well, that
Tacky.
could be a style choice.
That could be a poor one.
Eventually the satellite thing in orbit is going to be like telephone poles. It's going to be, the governments of the world are going to have to get together and regulate, who has access to the telephone poles, and the satellites are just going to be generic computers in orbit that do stuff.
I think that'll take a long time because it'll get to the point where how many satellites is too many satellites, right?
When they're bumping into each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you can't, you can only launch out into space in one little window. But he is not, so they did say that he wants to do something about space debris, but there's no mention of what that's going to be.
Yeah.
He just wants to do something, and that's all. We should just praise him for that.
Praise Elon.
But this is an insane number of satellites, although satellites are getting smaller and smaller because we got these little micro satellites. But so far, I think over the U.S., we've only got something like 5,000. So this is more than double the number of satellites.
And the big thing here is apparently SpaceX has a customer that's going to deploy some sort of communications network, like the old Iridium setup, but way faster for broadband. It's going to be,
like global internet, that type of thing is what they're looking for.
And if these are not geosynchronous orbit, the latency might not actually be completely terrible.
I think these are because these are all going to be over America, I'm pretty sure.
If it's geosynchronous, then it's going to be garbage latency.
And speaking of things that are staying in one spot in space or very near space, how about these new balloons?
The U.S. military is testing stratospheric balloons that ride the wind so they never have to come down. And this article actually talks about Google's thing where I forgot what Project Loon, I think.
They were lower.
Yeah, they were much lower. But these are still at only 75 to 90,000 feet. And that's not as bad as geosynchronous orbit.
Stratowall?
Yeah.
Stratol? I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyway, this little guy
What
here.
did you just say?
It's Strato.
Owl.
Strat. OAWL. Stratol.
I'm amazed you can read that from here, but
Oh my God.
Would you like to take a stab at pronouncing OAWL?
I mean, I can't even read that from here.
OAWL.
What do you think this is a picture of, Krista?
It's the satellite, or not the satellite.
It's not.
Shit.
It's a balloon. So this is actually the device that's going to read the wind. And so it shoots lasers out into the wind, and it looks at the refraction of the laser. And that tells it how fast the wind is moving, way far out. So it moves vertically to ride the wind and stay in exactly one spot.
Yeah, that's the genius of this technology, which is, exciting.
Pretty cool. And you're wondering, oh man, what kind of cool stuff we're going to do with balloons that are always in the same spot? Military.
Nothing. We just want to launch them. Hundreds of balloons everywhere.
Keep in mind commercial jet traffic's at only 30,000 feet, so these things are way up there.
Yeah, they're right on the edge of space. They did talk about it could be like a tourism type thing, where they'd float your ass up there and you could just hang out at the edge of space for a little while. Yeah.
There's no oxygen. That's a lie.
Well, no, you'd have to have
You'd be in a pressurized capsule or something.
Like the dude that did the free fall. Remember that?
Didn't
the
Simone
Red Bull
Yetch do
thing.
that? Or send her up on one of those flights that's right on the edge, so you go no gravity for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they do that to train the scientists.
Yeah.
Or the astronauts. Well, YouTube has, we talked about Article 13. It's been a while now, right?
That's in the European Union, yeah.
That was like September, something like that, maybe?
Yeah.
And we talked about the horrible possible consequences of Article 13, and now YouTube itself has weighed in.
Lawmakers making laws about things they don't understand? No, say it ain't so. So this article from the creator blog at YouTube basically talks about that and how they will literally have to take down so much content because they just have no way of knowing and they're just not going to bother.
And it's going to lead to upload filters, maybe just as a protective measure, because the penalties are so crazy, and there's no good way to do what you've been ruled to do. So what choice do you have other than just cut away the healthy flesh?
Backdoor control of the internet, that's what you have.
And you might be thinking, oh man, that's the EU's doing some bad things to the internet. Good thing they're not doing that over the entire globe.
Well, the French president Macron and tech giants are to launch a Paris call to fix the internet ill. So he's basically calling on these large tech companies, not countries. Governments, I guess, are in there too.
Yeah. Everybody except the U.S., Russia, and China. All the big names are in, actually.
Yeah. And it's like, we need to get together and figure out how we control the internet so we can make all this ambiguous bad stuff go away.
And sadly, like Trump is against it, or he's undecided at this point. But Google and Facebook are for it, obviously, because it's draconian control. And the whole orange man bad thing is going to work so that people are going to cry out for censorship. Yeah. And that's what this will be. This will be internet censorship, ultimately. So,
speaking of which, let's facilitate that and make it easier.
Let's move the internet censorship slider all the way over.
The sensitivity slider.
What does that look like?
ZTE is helping Venezuela create a China-style social control. So they've got an amazing picture here. I want to know if this is a stock photo or if this is something recent. So things are really bad in Venezuela.
No, because this
That's
is
real, yeah.
Z and Maduro here.
But I mean, that might be from years ago. We don't know.
But they have a picture. Here's the ZTE guy. Look at that guy.
Why has he got his fingers in his armpit?
Because it's showing his power. And they've got a picture of...
Is that a powerful stance?
So here he's sort of like pimping the card. Now this is called the Fatherland card.
Not ironically.
And so what this is going to do is it's going to create a social credit type situation, just like they have in China. Because he saw it and he was like,
we need that.
I want to control my people like they control the Chinese.
That. Yeah. So how do you get people to adopt the Fatherland card when it's obviously terrible? Well, you make it tied to welfare and food, which is a big thing in Venezuela right now. A lot of people struggling to find it.
A lot of people need to eat in Venezuela.
So if you don't adopt the card, you can't enjoy the benefits of the government.
Surely the government wouldn't take your food card away if you speak out against it.
They've never done anything like that in Venezuela. So ZTE sort of, it's interesting because they interviewed the guy and they were like, this is a despotic government and you're enabling them. What is this about? And his response was like, to us, this is just another customer. Don't hate the player, bro. Well, last week, I don't remember if we did this story or not. I remember reading it. I don't think we added it to the news, but some Google traffic mysteriously went through China.
A lot of internet traffic beyond just Google traffic, but it affected Google pretty significantly as well.
Which raised some questions about why that would be. Well, Nigeria has stepped up and taken the blame.
It's that Nigerian prince, dang it. He needed the money.
A Nigerian firm has said that they accidentally misconfigured their BGP routing tables and assumed control of some net blocks that belong to Google. And that Nigerian ISP gets its internet service from China. And so that's why it was routed through China. So honest mistake, no harm, no foul, right? I mean, it's totally cool that the internet, we've got the Internet Engineering Task Force. We already had the solution for this, hardening BGP, the BGP advertising and that sort of thing. We already have the fix for that. It's just that everybody has to deploy it.
Even Nigeria. Who might be influenced into not doing that.
Influenced how, Ryan?
I can't say for sure, but this next story sure is interesting. It's about China. We talked about the big Chinese database, and they got the social score and all that stuff, and so it's interesting. What happens if other people get a hold of that database? That would be catastrophic, right?
Or it would be MO, just standard operating. So, VentureBeat in PC gaming has this article. Tencent, which is a big company that makes lots of communications apps and games and crap like that. Tencent has access to China's national citizen database. And this enables the thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where they're limiting FaceTime for children on games. You get an hour a day and crap like that. So to prevent kids from making new accounts, free email address, it's literally going to look up the details that you give it against the national ID database and make sure that it's legit.
Including your photo.
Don't leave your match again.
we kind of
You'll be punished.
last week we talked about it's like, well, it's interesting because Tencent is now championing this program, but that's got to hurt them, right? Because you're not going to sell microtransactions to people who aren't playing the game more than an hour a day. So that kind of sucks. What could possibly compel them to play ball with this? Well, imagine if Google was given an extensive database of everybody in the country and all of their purchases and all of their movement.
That's a new market.
Yeah, how valuable would that be? And it turns out insanely valuable.
Are you saying that, like, if Google had a database of old grandmas who were wealthy, that Google's assistant could talk to the old grandma and be like, "I'm here for you, grandma. I will never leave you like your grandchildren have. Would you like to buy some stuff?" I guess that's probably Bezos that would do that.
Sign over your Social Security. Well, I'm just saying that Tencent is a proxy for Google here, and they actually gained more from this deal than they lost because they will monetize access to that database.
China is very much an emerging market, and having access to the entire citizenry versus how much of the market they've captured so far, that might have actually been a good business move for them.
Oh yeah, they'll be able to pick up new gamers based on that data.
Oh, Diablo Mobile. Do you think they'll do anything with that? I know it's a different company, but
I don't know if Activision does.
They want
China.
The whole reason they're doing that is because they're trying to get Chinese gamers, right?
Oh, that's probably true.
Once again, China takes the direct approach, or in the West, it seems like we do exactly the same thing, but take a more indirect approach for it.
Would you say that the West operates under stealth?
Not for much longer. Switching gears a little bit, China says it has developed a quantum radar that can see stealth aircraft. Now, we covered this once before, but it was the other way around. It was, rumor has it, that China has developed a quantum radar that can see stealth aircraft. So this thing is mind-blowing if it works. The way that it's described as working is that it creates two entangled beams of photons, and it sends one into the air looking for aircraft, and then it analyzes the one that it kept. And so if the one that it sent into the air looking for aircraft is messed with in any way, they will see it in the stream that they kept locally.
Bad news for Chicagoans. No, I'm not talking about being the murder capital of the world. No, not that. No, I'm not talking about your government being the most corrupt, possibly, city in America. I'm not talking about that. I'm, of course, talking about the amusement tax and PlayStation games getting 9% more expensive.
9%. PlayStation begins collecting amusement tax from Chicago users. So there have been a number of lawsuits about this, and the city of Chicago has won against other companies, and so PlayStation is going to go ahead and start collecting the tax. Although they are still fighting it in court, they've got a couple of rounds of court stuff left for this, I guess. But good Lord, move from Chicago. That's terrible.
Hulu
9%,
And it snows there all the time. Deep dish pizza. Ugh.
Is that a bad? That's like one of the small silver linings, right? Hulu and Netflix definitely charge it. I think Amazon charges it if you buy video games. Apple, interestingly, does not.
Wow. So Chicago didn't want to take on that battle with the world's largest company. Yeah. I wonder why.
Well, we've got these, our military, as we talked about with the whole Pentagon story. We're definitely the richest military in the world, most technologically advanced, with maybe some problems with China catching up. And we have all of our troops, and this is maybe the most important training exercise that has ever been run by the U.S. military.
The U.S. Army to compete in a live-streamed esports tournament.
If you're wondering what game, it's Street Fighter.
Street Fighter 5. Something Western RPGs are too slow. Is that?
No, it's so our editor, we're making fun of our editor. I don't know if he'll see this, but
Sorry.
he always is like, "Oh, I only play Japanese fighting."
But
games.
isn't Street Fighter a Japanese fighting game?
I don't know.
Maybe
I think so,
originally.
yeah.
I'm sure he'll add an
He'll
annotation.
tell us, yeah. I'll clap. Maybe he'll see that when he edits it.
So the idea here is all the different Army barracks are going to compete, and then the winners of all those smaller tournaments are going to go to the MGM in Las Vegas, and it's all going to be on Twitch if you want to watch that. The grand prize winner, now hold on to your seats here. They're going to get a $500 gift card.
To the Western Sizzlin.
To Ulta, to Sephora.
I don't know.
Makeup store.
Did they see the League of Legends tournament was insane, like the stadium and the lighting, and I mean it was.
You ever watch Overwatch League? It's like they do all that too.
I don't
it
think
was nuts.
Does Street Fighter have that kind of?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I bet there is maybe not here. Maybe
Now
in Japan.
they did defend it by saying that not only is it a morale thing, obviously, but they believe that the frame perfect twitch movements of Street Fighter directly correlates into battlefield awareness and response times and stuff like that. So better Street Fighter, better soldier. Apparently.
Would you say that hand-eye coordination could also lead to better surgeons?
Well, do we even need that? Because now we're entering the golden age of robotic surgeons, right? We don't need these pesky doctors anymore.
And they can auto-stitch. No. This is the Daily Mail. So if you're in the UK, they're experimenting with the Da Vinci robot. And by experimentation, I'm thinking Dr. Frankenstein levels of experimentation. This story, I don't know. I blame the doctor more than the machine, but there's a lot of things that were at fault here.
Sukumara Nair, this gentleman right here is the doctor. And this fellow over here, Stephen Pettit, is dead.
He was supposed to get a heart valve replaced, which is not, I don't want to say routine, because no surgery is routine, but, come on.
Yeah, I know someone who's getting one done, and it's not anything to be too worried about, usually. This
Daily Mail sidebar is just, look at the thottery over here. It's ridiculous. So here's the murdering robot in question. And
GLaDOS.
Roberto's great-grandfather.
Da Vinci. Oh, what a terrible thing to name Da Vinci after a murdering robot. Or a murdering robot after Da Vinci. So what happened here, it was sort of a comedy of errors. So many things went wrong. And I don't know how much we can blame on the robot. So here's the timeline of failure. That guy, Dr. Nair didn't train.
Twice.
On the robot. He had medical training, but not on the robot.
And it's not that he didn't want to train. It's just that he was so overworked, or so he claims, that he was performing actual surgeries during the training times. So he was like, it's more important for me to do actual surgery than go to your stupid training. So he didn't go. And
now a man's dead.
With robot surgeries have backup doctors on call, right? Because it's a brand new thing. Of course, we're going to have some sort of
fail-safe
plan, All three of the backup doctors decided to go home early. So they weren't there when the shit hit the fan. And then finally, the speaker, because the doctor sticks his head down in the little, blackout hood. The speaker, so he could communicate with the people who were assisting, didn't really work. So he was screaming under the hood instructions to the helpers.
And apparently the robot hit people and crap
it was just flailing around. The last straw was when it was improperly stitching the heart. It was doing a nice cross stitch, which isn't maybe super useful.
That was literally a toggle. They literally missed a toggle to be no cross stitch.
And it was writing "Bless this home."
I was doing one of those 8-bit, stitches that are so popular on Etsy.
Yeah.
And so they gave up and took over and did the rest of it manually. He survived the surgery, but died 3 days later
from multiple organ failure because that was just terrible.
So not a good start for Da Vinci
in the UK. We've been using it here in the US for quite some time, and I don't recall any headlines about it ending badly because the company behind it would probably not want that kind of PR.
That's weird, because what's the difference between the medical system in the two countries?
There come the downvotes.
They're the same, right? Oh, you know who hates socialized medicine? The boiler
there it
snake.
Comes. He's never been on camera yet.
This is his 2018 debut, yeah.
Yeah.
So
there he goes. He's just
Yeah.
Banging away over there.
As a manual heating system, he hates robotics. Like he gets real riled up.
He's preparing for his spiel for when he goes home for Thanksgiving. He just has to start clanking around at the dinner table while everybody else is just trying to eat.
All right, bro. Settle down.
Simmer down.
So, speaking of out-of-control robots in the UK,
the British Army is carrying out a massive test of military robots and drones. They said they weren't. They said it was just a practice and exercise. What they meant was, those don't have C4 in them. It's just dummy loads.
But, what's the name of this? Drone Wars UK is a freedom of information agency, and they showed documents that kind of contradicts the fact that they're not going to have weapons, and they're kind of saying, well, it would be super simple just to add weapons to this system.
I think that they need to learn from the lesson that the U.S. learned, what was it, the 1930s or the 1940s? That is the drone defense thing, not the drone war thing, because we went from the Department of War to the Department of Defense.
Did the same thing. It's a nicer name, I suppose.
I'm so distracted by the boiler snake right now.
Well, listen, you talk about robots, and he just won't have
It's
it.
all riled up.
I don't know why he's so active, because it's not that cold
It's not that cold today. It's a
Even
little
though
chilly.
Krista's wearing a full parka.
That's precisely why he's so riled up, because
Nice.
the water's cold, and so it goes from hot to cold. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about self-driving cars, and it's sort of a specter on the horizon. Like, it's like, oh, that's big talk, but it's never going to happen, right? We're never going to actually have self-driving cars. Well, guess what?
Soon there will be Waymo self-driving cars, because Waymo is to start its first driverless car service next month.
This will be in Phoenix, Arizona.
At first, but they are talking about rolling it out to all major markets.
Uber and Lyft without the drivers. This is how it's going to unfold.
My first question for this was, what happens when you vomit in the cab?
I think it's going to be like airport bathrooms, because airport bathrooms have this little thing, and it's like happy face all the way to like very unhappy face.
Well, I imagine it's like Uber, where it'll be the app, right? Like, you'll get to your destination, and they'll have like a little questionnaire. Like, how did you enjoy your robot?
Did you vomit in the cab? Did you give, like, what's the questionnaire? Is it going to be like, did you give birth in the cab? Like, what am I having to clean up here?
How long until the 11 o'clock news where they talked about a terrorist that got a bright idea to like, have the car show up somewhere, and then they packed it full of explosives and sent it off to its next destination?
Well, they weren't thinking that, but now they are.
I bet they
job.
have so much analytics, like the weight of the car changing over a certain amount, and you'll get a little text message like, hey, bro, are you moving some furniture?
What if you're just extra thick?
Maybe the terms of service says you shouldn't do that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I just bought a truck, and when you test drive a truck, you have to sign an extra paper that says that you won't go move furniture with it and bring it back.
Really?
Because apparently that happens all the time.
Wow. That's genius.
Yeah. I never thought about that, but dang. What are they going to do if you do?
I think if you were upfront about them, it's like, look, this is a new model. I need to see how it is at truck type tasks. I'm just going to move a bookshelf.
No, they
Well, if
probably
you didn't
wouldn't go for
damage
that.
it, how would they know?
I don't know. If they could prove it, though, then you're in trouble.
It's like, you're welcome to go with me and see. I just need to see if it will do well at truck type tasks.
I mean, you'd have to be damn sure you didn't scratch it or something.
Oh, now that you have a truck, you don't even have to rent a moving van.
No.
Just dump
I'm
everything
fully
in the truck.
autonomous. And you know who else is fully autonomous? Amazon. And
Good segue.
they've conquered every industry. And it's funny that this is sort of like full circle, because Amazon, in fact, began life as a bookstore.
The world's biggest bookstore. Oh, they were hemorrhaging money so fast then. The headline is, Amazon has everything it needs to make massively popular algorithm-driven fiction. And so authors are saying, algorithm-driven fiction, maybe not somewhere we want to go in our society. Amazon saying, profits.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe
So
we will.
the idea here is not AI writing fiction, although I'm sure somewhere at Amazon they're experimenting with that. Don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
If not them, then Google is.
But it's AI hiring authors to write fiction according to its prescription, which is horrifying.
and knowing, based on word count or page count, where the most popular books do certain things. Like, introduce the antagonist on this page. Introduce a plot twist on this chapter. Or how long should a book be? Or, how many characters should there be? How much dialogue should each character have with this other character? These are the kinds of things that the crazy amount of data they have could actually let AI spit out.
I think that's probably going to happen, because when chain restaurants were a new invention, the people that ran restaurants were like, this is going to be really horrible. But the people that were on the road and wanted to eat at restaurants wanted a consistent experience. And so I think a lot of people will want a consistent experience reading a book the same way that they will opt for McDonald's.
Well, people
it's a
do
known,
that already.
Even though it's terrible, it's a known quantity.
Comfort books.
Yeah, like, like the the crappy sci-fi book that's like the same as all the others, or the romance novel, or
That is
the
kinda
thriller
true.
book.
Well, in the age of Harry Potter and 50 Shades of Grey, can it get much worse?
Harry Potter had some original ideas. They were just all jammed in at the last minute. So
One thing that I guarantee you the AI will never, ever suggest you do in a fantasy book is poetry and songs.
more poetry, more Tom Bombadil. Actually, I agree. I think he kind of breaks up the narrative a little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah, they could probably remove. Well, like he could still be there. Like he still serves a function because he gets the hobbits their swords.
That is the literary equivalent of public masturbation. Exactly.
He could be trimmed down though. Like his editor should have been a little harder on Tom Bombadil.
Well, that's all we got for government and AI robot, in case you didn't realize the topics we were covering today. Tomorrow will be business and one of security or...
Don't know.
Not nonsense.
I forgot.
Social?
Oh, right, social. I think security and social are about the same this week. So
Yeah, there's a lot of news, and there's a lot of nonsense as well.
we might trim a little nonsense.
We actually have a lot of hardware news in business news this time as well. A lot of things are not good for NVIDIA in more ways than one.
Yeah.
You'll have to see how tomorrow.
Stay tuned.
Might get some trickle-down economics for Black Friday on the old video cards.
Woo!
All right. See you then.
Bye. Today's Wednesday. It's the 21st. I had to pause because I wasn't sure because we messed up earlier.
Listen, it's a holiday here in the U.S., and basically we're going to get drunk.
We're giving thanks. Don't promise that, because now they're going to be like,
Drunk news.
drunk news win.
I would commit. I will do that before the end of the year. Not necessarily drunk, but definitely. I mean, this year, Jesus, alcohol should
Well, we're
take the edge off.
we've only got like what, 3 weeks
Yeah,
for a window for that. So
it's got to be soon.
you've just made an impressive
A promise, yeah.
What's your drink of choice going to be?
Mudslide.
Yeah, maybe just
Roll or
Rock-A-Lua. I mean,
Oh, that hangover is going to be
just
savage.
brutal. Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the sugar. Yeah.
A man of taste. I also like sugary drinks.
You're going to be like 17% hungover and dehydrated.
Crypto hangover hammers Nvidia's outlook. Shares dropped 17%. So they had their earnings call, and their earnings are way down because nobody's buying cards for crypto.
because crypto's way down.
Yeah, and actually, there's more news happening even beyond this. Like there's the RTX cards are dying. Gamers Nexus did a video on like the cards dying at an abnormally high rate. Nvidia has delisted them on their store for whatever reason. There may be a recall. It could all just be maneuvering to get people to buy the 10 series inventory that's left over from the cryptocurrency leftovers, because there's warehouses and warehouses of 10 series cards. And honestly, the RTX stuff, I mean, I've got the 2080 Ti, and just get a 1080 Ti if you get it on sale.
That article goes into that. They sort of expected, it's like, we've starved the people for so long. When we finally give them back their precious cards, they're going to flood into the market.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't.
Yeah.
They don't seem to care all that much. And honestly, with modern games, I don't think you're gaining a ton. Like, what does Fallout 76 need to run?
Fallout 76 is a burning dumpster fire of insanity.
But that's the hot new game, and I don't think it's all.
Is it?
Even as a Bethesda game, I don't think it's that.
I mean, it's super
demanding.
unoptimized. So I did the side-by-side with Fallout 4 with like some of the mods and stuff to make the performance run decently well. And Fallout 4, like with the fixes and stuff, looks gorgeous and runs, and it's a fixed frame rate. But 76, I think, is capped at 60 FPS by default. So.
Well, it's the console, right? Yeah. So, with the consoleization, I think we're losing what makes PC gaming so much better. All right, so why spend $1,000?
Well, and you don't want to game at 4K 120 hertz either. I mean, 1440p at like 120 hertz is arguably a better gaming experience than 4K at 60.
You don't.
Actually, we complain every week about 4K gaming, so when we're on Twitch.
Well, related to the old NVIDIA drop, that NVIDIA story came out earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Before another plummet in Bitcoin.
It was so stable for so long. It was stable for almost a year at about $6,000, and it plummeted to just over $5,000. And as of the time of this video, it's stabilized at about 56, 57, something like that.
There was some kind of split with Bitcoin Cash. I think that was the catalyst for this.
Oh.
So there's more argument. It's like the Satoshi version.
Bickering.
It is really getting out of hand, you know.
Crypto bickering.
So, and it's hurting the overall price. But who knows?
Do you think that's also driving the people that are still mining with these things to sell their cars? Because let me tell you, the used market for a very gently used 1080 Ti for like $500 is the deal of the century.
Yeah, but Bitcoin mining is not exactly gentle.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it really gently used?
It depends on the miner, though. I mean, if they underclock it, that's gentle.
No,
you think? Would you trust
Nobody
someone
would
though?
know.
Would you
No.
just to
You
tell
don't-
the truth about that?
You don't go and buy mining cards just to gently.
I can inspect the PCB for heat damage. It's fine. Although that's an argument against buying it on eBay or Craigslist sight unseen.
Well, listen. Eventually, those cards are going to fail, and you know what else is eventually going to fail? Amazon.
That's literally what Jeff Bezos told his employees. That's the CNBC headline. Jeff Bezos to employees. One day Amazon will fail, but our job is to delay it as long as possible. And he talked about what Amazon would need to do to retain customers and be, a 100-year company, a 100-year fixture.
There needs to be an alcohol company.
He did
That's
mention
what he says.
that
Liquid happiness.
Yeah.
only alcohol companies last for multiple centuries. But the solution was focus on the customer and don't get caught up in, the corporate stuff, which I feel like Amazon is doing a pretty good job of, because they're giving us exactly what we wanted, even though we didn't know that we always wanted it, right?
No interaction with humans.
Helicopter pads?
Well, we don't get that.
They do.
But we're getting quick delivery, free movies and music and extras and stuff like that. And, this monolithic shopping experience. Sure, it's destroying society, but it's so convenient.
But will they be... there's no safeguard to prevent them from abusing that power once literally no other business is left.
Well, I don't imagine that'll happen for another 20, 30 years. So
That's future us problem.
Well, it's not. Maybe future Ryan might not even be around. So, yeah, who cares? But maybe an example of a company that's not putting the customer first or third or 576th
Customers nowhere on the roadmap.
is Apple.
Apple has confirmed that its T2 security chips block some third-party repairs of the new Macs. Apple has gone super hostile on third-party repair of any Apple product. And the T2 is a security chip that has to do with like handshaking all of the other hardware in the system. So like, oh, your SSD went bad, just swap that out for a new SSD. Not so fast there, Chuckles.
Yeah, the logic board or the touchpad, the fingerprint pad, if you replace either of those, your phone will, or not your phone, your Mac will become inoperable because the T2 has to be, there's a diagnostic tool that has to be used to be like, oh yes, we replaced this thing. It's okay. You can trust us. We're Apple employees. And guess who doesn't get to buy that?
Non-Apple employees.
It is a dumpster fire. Does Apple not realize about all the case law for automobiles? Like, what is their legal strategy going to be? Because we went through all this with automobiles in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
I'm sure they've got a case drawn up for when they inevitably get sued.
Their legal strategy is mountains of cash stuffed in the appropriate pockets. And it's worked so far.
That is true. It has worked astonishingly well.
And speaking of mountains of cash, if you're somebody who has mountains of cash, Intel's got a couple of new products for you.
Woo! The Core i9 9980 XE. So there's X299's getting a refresh. We're moving from like the 7980 XE and the 7900, 7900X and that kind of thing to the 9980 XE. Now check out those prices. Scroll down so we can see the prices because they're
For the low price.
They're insane. Yeah. So look at that. 3 gigahertz base clock, 4.4 gigahertz turbo, and 3.0. The Turbo Boost 3.0 is only 4.5, 18 cores, 36 threads, 165 watt TDP, 24 megs of cache, 44 threads. $1979.
Ooh.
That's thousands of dollars.
That's a
not
lot of
$19.
money. Well, you're going to pay tax on that, so
$19.95.
it's going to be well over $2.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The benchmarks, courtesy of Hot Hardware, show that yes, this is a very powerful CPU, but much like Intel's last offering, it doesn't dominate as you would expect it to based on the price difference.
Yes.
The Threadripper is right there swinging.
It's trying.
And it's doing it for a lot less money.
The single thread performance, of course, is still where Intel wins. But Intel's kind of competing with itself here because they've got the new, 9900K desktop processor. It's 8 cores. A lot of games don't even really use more than 4 or 6 cores. And it's only $600, quote unquote, only. It's only $600. But, honestly, that single thread IPC doesn't really make that much of a difference, except in some rare, not really rare, but like lower res gaming situations where you're CPU bound. Most of the time you want to be GPU bound, not CPU bound.
Yeah, they did show that the 1080 scores were amazing for both of these CPUs.
Yeah.
But are we gaming at 1080 are you building a machine with one of these processors and not putting a really nice video card into it?
Yeah.
Is anybody doing that?
No.
So yeah, the 9900K, again, 5 gigahertz. Now you will probably have to liquid cool that for sure.
Yeah.
To get 5
You're gonna have to
gigahertz.
liquid cool all of these because these TDP numbers are lies.
Yeah.
Not really lie. Well,
They're technically true.
they're yes, but
Technically correct. The best kind of correct.
it's just
But you will get that single threaded performance.
Yes.
So if that's what you're after, if you're Twitch streaming and you just want pure CPU with a little bit of OBS, 9900K might not be a bad idea.
it's $600. You can get something 95% as good for half price.
You need that 5%, man.
You're a 5%er.
That's what edges you over the competition.
Oh, we've also got some terrifying news because of Nintendo.
Now we talked about this story before that Nintendo went after these ROM sites, and they had I don't remember what it was like per ROM, like $1,000 or something.
Yeah, that seems like just a couple weeks ago.
So I don't think they ended up charging them exactly that number, but they have settled on a final number. Ooh, it's a big one.
$12 million. Now, I feel like this went through the court system in record time. Nintendo won $12 million from.
Would you say they speedrun it?
I hate to side with Nintendo, but if I were a judge, this is a pretty open and shut case. Yeah. I mean, these people were definitely giving away Nintendo's
intellectual
property.
Yeah.
Now you can say what you want about piracy and is it theft, and there's a debate there. But as the law exists, I think an honest judge.
They're just successful preservationists. What do you want?
Nintendo says Nintendo. There's the title this week.
There's
you
the
don't even have to
title
think of
this
one.
week.
And Nintendo can just illustrate, hey, we are currently selling these games. Literally these same ROMs. And we're making it's like $7 a piece or $15 a piece. So, yeah, easy for them to win that court case, I think. That's terrifying but fair, maybe. Maybe we need copyright reform rather than, count on judges to interpret loosely. And here now, so if you're looking at those Intel stories and you're like, oh man, with my budget, I can't even afford, a 1,000th of that 9980. Well, good news.
There's a new Raspberry Pi Model 3, or Raspberry Pi 3 Model A+. And it's got Bluetooth 4.2 and dual band Wi-Fi for $25. Those are the only real upgrades.
But it loses 3 USB ports and the Ethernet port for that price. So if you like those things, go ahead and get the B+.
Which is what, $10 more?
No,
$10 more.
Is it 35?
35.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, ad blocker complaints. Well, here's, it's funny that the ad blocker popped up on this website, considering what this story is about.
Microsoft could be about to hit users of Windows 10's mail app with ads unless they pay up. This is not, well, they say it's not real and it's just a test, but...
So, I was trying to figure out, is there a scenario where this would actually be okay? And I think if you're a user of like Outlook.com or an unpaid user of Gmail or something like that, the intent from Microsoft was to offer those services a way to display the ads that they normally display on the website in the mail client. And if that's the case, Maybe that's okay.
And Hotmail had ads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does. I mean, well, we'll pull it back up on the screen here. It looks like an email.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
That's poor UI.
They do give you a little ad picture, but it kind of looks like the icon from the sender. So
Yeah.
How many office grandmas are going to open that up?
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bad situation in terms of like getting your grandma to accidentally click a malicious ad that does terrible, terrible things. They talk about how if you had Office 365, it wouldn't do that, but I think their PR person would have been better served to say, no, this is only for ad-supported free email services. We're giving ad-supported free email services a way to display their ads within our program. And I think at least if that wasn't the intention, putting that spin on it is a much less terrible spin than we're building ads into your operating system.
Well, what they said was, we were just testing. We're not actually going to do this.
Well,
but
I mean, why would you test it if you're not going to do it?
No one believes that. But that was the ultimate spin, I suppose. And one thing that won't be spinning are Xbox 360 games and the new Xbox One option coming next year.
The Ars Technica article headline is Report, cheaper disc-free Xbox One option coming next year. But the headline that they failed here was Microsoft single-handedly is doing away with the used games market.
Look how sad. Scroll down so you can see that sad disc.
Yeah. You think they would take this as a trade-in?
No.
No, probably not.
So the idea is you're going to get a cheaper console that does not have the disk drive. Do the disk drives in the current generation, do they fail as much as the old Xbox 360?
Yes.
It seems like one of the weaker points. It's probably the only moving part left in the machine.
Yeah.
Other than the fan.
Those consoles are made as cheaply as possible, and so that CD-ROM is made out of failed toaster parts and used rubber bands.
So you won't get a CD-ROM. You'll do everything online, and if you have physical games, you're going to take those to a Microsoft store, turn them in to be destroyed, and they will put that game on your account.
This is bad news for people like some of my younger cousins who live in households without internet. Like, they're just screwed now.
Well, but also there's that, Apple does that constantly where it's like, oh, the publisher changed the rules on this video or this book. We're taking it off your account. What are you going to do about it?
That was literally one of the things in 1984 that was like one of the more shocking things about the novel.
The memory hole.
Yeah.
Or like, remember the GTA hot coffee?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is unsafe. We're turning it off
Yeah.
for everybody's account. And you don't get your money back. So I can totally see that happening. And Microsoft, while they may be taking advantage of us in terms of consoles and destroying the used game market, they will not be taking advantage of the Dutch.
The sleeping European giant has been roused, and the Register's article headline is Microsoft has menaced with GDPR mega fines in Europe for large-scale and covert gathering of people's info via Office. So the Dutch government nerds have looked at the Office telemetry, and it gathers everything. And they're like, wait a minute, you can't keep all of this data. And Microsoft's like,
Specifically, they're talking about spell checking and translation services. All those little snippets that they copy to do those, spell checking and translation, they store them on Microsoft's server, not your server. So that's your personal stuff. Who knows what you're typing in Office that you don't want Microsoft to have?
Dear
and they
diary.
keep it. Yeah. Exactly.
Just never just like write a bunch of swear words and then like erase it. You don't do that.
Well, they keep that because it goes into the spell check before you erase it. There's no escape. They know. They know what you're thinking.
They know my email anxiety.
They know everything about you. And they might know about your family if they share Facebook's data.
This Facebook patent, this was like everywhere. Facebook filed a patent to predict your household's demographics based on family photos. Again, this is like the Google lady where it's just like, this is standard operating procedure. Like, this should be shocking to me. Or it should be shocking to everybody.
Yes.
But it's not.
Totally predictable.
They already just ask you sometimes, like, if you're related to people.
So they're looking
at that picture.
They're looking at pictures like this. And if you tag them with, like son or, family or whatever, and they sort of like, lay it out here. They're looking at IP addresses, tags, pictures, and they're looking for an AI that can put all that together to automatically figure out, based on all of your stuff, who you're related to and how many people are in the house. And of course, that will go into your shadow profile.
Which is useful for advertising and all this other kind of stuff.
Very useful for advertising. And it could probably, Facebook is really good at this stuff. It'll get good enough to detect, like, when you're having a bad time with your family.
Citizen status, second class,
It's
not
like-
worth advertising.
or
You look unhappy because your uncle's drunk at the table screaming.
Or divorce lawyers.
Oh,
Yeah.
hookups.com.
And
I don't know if that's a website.
that was the biggest story about Facebook for a little while. And then this one came out.
CNBC has factored heavily in the news this week.
Facing scrutiny.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just facing, it was funny. Facing scrutiny, Facebook reportedly hired a PR firm that wrote negative articles about rivals Apple and Google.
The headline is a
Subtle.
little understated.
So this was the Definers Public Affairs.
I don't even want to explain what they did in this article for fear of being demonetized, because that's happened.
Well, so Facebook, of course, has had a very bad year. They had Cambridge Analytica, then they had the other leak.
And yet somehow they're hanging on financially.
And then there was that weird live stream of him having a barbecue.
There was, the Senate hearing where he was full robot. The delete Facebook hashtag. It's been a rough time. And, of course, the real numbers that have been reported, they've been declining because people are fleeing Facebook. So what did they do? How did they improve their image? Well, they hired an attack dog PR firm to go after Google, Apple, and, most interestingly, George Soros.
That was the thing that I was hoping to avoid, because there's alarm bells going off in some control panel at Google somewhere. But that's in the CNBC article, so you'll just have to go read it.
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I don't think George Soros is doing terrible, terrible things to try to, subvert democracy. But that's
We have a Patreon, and I'm just going to suggest that you go join right now.
the kind of thing. Well, okay. I mean, think about that. Was it Voltaire? Like, who are you
Yeah.
not allowed to criticize?
Yeah.
Right? So, but that's the kind of thing that's usually in the ballpark of Alex Jones and all those other. Who's the guy that convinced me I'm wrong or changed my mind?
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember his name, but those are the kind of people who talk about that kind of thing. Certainly not Facebook, who themselves are very liberal. So they weren't. This wasn't politically motivated. This was just like, claw our way to the top of the drowning victims and sit on their shoulders to save ourselves.
I'll save my comments about how politically motivated Facebook is until we get to the one story about the VR guy. But
yeah.
no, I mean, I don't disagree. But I'd just like to call your attention to the VPN affiliate links that we have in the description below. You can use those.
Private internet access.
Store.level1text.com. We'll be running a Christmas coupon soon.
Yeah, so I mean, you should check that out. Use those affiliate links for us, please. Thank you.
We should always point out private internet access has been proven in court twice to not keep logs. Just a data point. If you're VPN shopping for your Christmas loved ones.
We've got videos on setting up pfSense to automatically filter all of your traffic through that VPN, as well as Liquid VPN, and I think another VPN. So there's multiple.
I think the
VPNs.
other one was the one that was proven not to be, so we took that one.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, there's still at least 2 in the description below, so you've got choices. There's choices.
Well, Facebook responded, and they didn't really say much, but they did say that there were some inaccuracies.
Literally, if Facebook responds to the New York Times expose as there are a number of inaccuracies, that's just so cold and dispassionate.
That's what they did, though. And then they didn't say what they were. They're just like, there are inaccuracies.
Almost robotic.
Smoked meats.
Maybe, and I think this is more damning than anything. They did immediately fire the PR firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the 14th is when they fired them. So it's like as soon as that story came out, they were like, "You're done."
You get the feeling that the executive from Facebook was like, "Look, guys, this would have been fine for you to do this if you hadn't got caught."
Yeah, they did some bad things, and now the fallout continues because Vanity Fair has this op-ed about Sheryl Sandberg, which is not very.
The quote/headline is, "I hope it cracks who she is wide open." Inside Silicon Valley may have known that Sheryl Sandberg isn't a saint. Now, who is Sheryl Sandberg?
There she is.
There's a picture. That's not a flattering photo of her.
She's married to the Zuck. that right?
No.
No.
Mark
No,
Zuckerberg was
she's-
married to a small Asian lady.
She's the number 2.
Oh, she's the number 2. Okay. okay.
Yeah. So she's supposed to be like
well.
the voice of reason.
So she
right?
is married to the Zuck, but not.
Well,
Yeah.
Corporately.
she's responsible for his public programming.
Yes.
But so she's supposed to be like this maternal voice of like reason. She's a huge feminist, supposedly. So she's sort of that, even keeled, let's not make Facebook evil, I'm a great person kind of thing. There's a great, like one of the anecdotes from this article was they all got called in during the Obama administration to meet. And so there's like, everybody came in. It's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna do the live feed or whatever, and they all shook hands and had a good time. But she didn't shake anybody's hand. And as soon as the live feed went on, she shook Obama's hand because it was all for the the photo op and everything like that. And so they paint her as a political climber and sort of disingenuous and controlling, and that came out in this story.
There's actually a lot of things like that in this story that were kind of shocking, honestly, because she's so calculated.
Really?
Well, yeah, I mean that she's so calculating to negotiate every little thing. And there was like some controversial thing they wanted to interview her about, and so they were going to send a crew, but she's like, "No, we're not doing a crew. We're going to do a phone interview, and it's because the weather is bad. But it's like we've got our own helicopter, and we can get people there. It's not a problem.
We can use the weather control machine. You know that." We're Facebook.
It shouldn't be shocking, but it was just like, man, they like curate every little thing. I wonder if she's the one that was responsible for the wedge that Zuck had to sit on for the Senate.
Probably
The wedge.
They probably had a number of wedges, and she had to like shave it down to the perfect height.
If you read the article, that describes that kind of behavior to her.
And like the one guy who got it 2 millimeters wrong,
Yeah,
she took the power sander to his face.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then had his children killed. Well, this story was a late breaking story, again, on the dog pile of Facebook. And this is probably not from a PR standpoint, but from a realistic standpoint, this should be the worst one.
MarketWatch has, for the first time, researchers say Facebook can cause depression. Now, I really seem to remember us covering this story in the past.
Over and over and over.
But this study is much more scientific.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have sort of anecdotally pointed this out. But this is a study, and it's labeled FOMO, which is fear of missing out. So, yeah, no more FOMO. And you can actually go and read the abstract for this. But the thing that they were studying is that fear of missing out. So, like, if you're just sitting quietly or reading a book or something, you have this fear ticking in your head. It's like, oh, God, things are going on and I'm not part of it, And how much does that ruin your life?
Is that what's going on in normal people's heads?
Are you implying
how
you're
much
not
Twitter
normal?
do you do every day?
I like announcing things.
And reading it.
What would happen if you didn't announce those things?
Probably nothing.
So, yeah, they're saying they did the study. They had 143 undergraduates. One half, they just said, pay attention to what you're doing on social media, but don't do anything different. The other half, they said use it for 10 minutes. The 10-minute people were super happy at the end.
Well, the people that used it 10 minutes, they also told them to look for specific, pay attention to this happening in the back of your mind and bring it to the front of your mind. And
well, they told them both that.
Yeah. So, that seems like that helped them. Just having those mental tools to not get sucked into that web of insanity helped a lot.
Right. Well, they explained the whole fear of missing out to the whole crew.
Wendell just dropped his
What's going
phone.
on over there?
I dropped my phone.
Oh, that's still tweeting.
Just hit the mic.
It's fine.
Put it up here. It's fine.
And has every social story been Facebook this week? I didn't even notice that.
Yes, they're all Facebook,
It's
I
incredible.
think.
And this probably, like we talked about, the study is probably the worst news if you look at it logically. The PR disaster is probably the worst news if you look at it from, the
Facebook's
everybody point of view. This one is probably the one that pisses Facebook off the most.
Facebook to let French regulators investigate on the moderation process. So this is kind of interesting because the French want to know that Facebook is not manipulating the message. Because, look, Facebook doesn't have to come out and say that baguettes are terrible. They can just let people who think baguettes are terrible reach more people than people who think baguettes are awesome.
That's what France has really cared about.
Or to censor the pro-baguette lobby.
Yeah, exactly. And so the French are like, we want to know what the breakdown of this process is. And Facebook is like, no, you don't. This is a sausage factory. You do not want to watch the process of making sausage. And the French regulators are like, no, yeah, actually we do.
And not only that, but there's a appeal process. And that's a total black box. So when something gets taken down and you're like, there's nothing wrong with this, I'll appeal this. And they come back and they're like, nope, sorry, not coming back. France wants to know who decides that and what do they use to decide it.
We can't bring that back because it turns out that, extremists really like baguettes. And so we must suppress baguettes for the good of the French national security.
George Soros eats one every morning.
Check out those VPN links and just...
Drink to avoid awkwardness.
And this one could be filed under the extreme pettiness of the rich and famous.
I think this kind of makes me like Mark Zuckerberg more because I think it proves to me that he's a little bit human still.
Maybe they just installed his petty revenge chip that day.
Yeah.
The headline from The Verge is Mark Zuckerberg reportedly ordered all Facebook executives to use Android phones. This is, of course, after Tim Cook had some sharply worded comments on how Facebook is about selling your privacy.
He roasted them in the youth's talk today.
I don't know. This might have been part of that whole expose. I don't remember if it was or not. But yeah, apparently Zuckerberg was so angry that he just, this was his backlash.
Everybody must use Android. No iPhones.
They
no
do.
iPhones.
They point out how Android is probably a little bit more secure and you don't have the whole T2 thing to worry about. You don't have the Stingray thing to worry about. But that wasn't the motivation. It was just purely to get back at Tim Cook, who probably could not care.
You think they still have test Apple devices for the Facebook app?
Well,
Do you think that they just took all of them out of the headquarters and the programmers were like, I can't test the app now?
No, because that would cost them money.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. They're not worried about the plebs. You have to be among the Facebook elite in order to be part of this rule. Mm. And wow, it really was pure Facebook.
Yeah.
I did not realize that at first. Well,
we just organized the stories. It was pretty obvious.
Maybe I tuned it out. I don't know.
I mean, when I read them, it was like, wow, there's a lot of Facebook stories, but it wasn't like literally everything is about Facebook. Motherboard has got an article about 86 organizations demanding Zuckerberg improve the takedown appeals. Now, I think that given the context of all of our other stories about Facebook, this is a shark smelling blood in the water a little bit, and also a little bit actual organizations wanting some transparency into the process. But this specific article is a train wreck.
Yeah. So this is kind of the sharks is a good example, right? Because what happens during the feeding frenzy?
It just turns into a big bloody mess.
The sharks begin to eat themselves. Right? One of them gets nicked by another one's tooth, and suddenly that's bleeding, and they're bloodlusted and they eat the other shark. Or at least, I don't know if that actually happens. Is that like an urban legend?
That's probably true.
It's probably more true for piranhas.
It's important that it's true for the purposes of explaining the story.
So these organizations it seems like they're pretty left-leaning. And one of the things that they're angry about is that Facebook is at least trying, it seems, to apply the takedowns across the board. Now, this is, you can't say stuff like this without triggering people, but I don't really care. There's a lot of cis white men have to die. Cis white men are ruining the world. That kind of thing. I can't believe white people are doing this. And Facebook takes those down because that is, by the letter, that's racism. But a lot of these organizations are saying that kind of thing is improperly targeting minorities with censorship.
Everything must be censored equally. The Motherboard article, honestly, is kind of fascinating.
So now there are, Electronic Frontier Foundation. Normally, I would agree with a lot of stuff they say. Center for Democratic Technology. I don't know who they are. Santa Clara Principles. Article 19. Digital Rights. I haven't heard of a lot of these. But all these people are coming out and saying that Facebook needs to do more.
Well, the first thing that they want is more transparency. But this train wreck of a situation was created by acting quickly, but without thinking through what would happen when it was really easy to get stuff taken down.
But it's also, forget which side of the aisle that you're on. It shows that censorship, it's the people who cry out for censorship, it's never enough.
Yeah.
Because you get your censorship, and then it affects you, and then you want censorship of the censorship.
Yeah. Well, rap lyrics is one of the examples. From
Well,
the
of
article.
course, rapper Lil B. Krista, you're familiar with Lil B,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah. Lil B. He's friends with Cardi B, right?
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Cardi B is?
No.
She's a new rapper in town. She has a beef with Nicki Minaj.
Just to illustrate this, let's see what Lil B said. Here's Lil B.
That's a good screenshot. I actually don't know who these people are.
No. Highlight that paragraph there. Facebook recently banned Lil B for 30 days for violating the social network's hate speech policies.
I want to know what he
Causing
said.
furor online.
Well, they probably won't print it in the article if his art.
They do. They always leave the good stuff out. There's no.
Oh, that's a good
better
picture.
picture of
Yeah.
Lil B. Yeah. It doesn't seem that little.
It sent two of the posts that violated Facebook's hate speech policies and weighed in on its ban Wednesday. Read more here.
Talking about white people. They're not going to tell us.
I hope that he says we smell like.
It's a circular link.
I hope he says we smell like dairy.
What did he say?
That's my favorite white person stereotype.
That's hilarious because Motherboard won't print Anyway, it just points out
Long way.
that Facebook is trying to be across the board, and that's not enough.
Level 1 Patreon. In the description.
Well, if none of that did it, this
One will, yeah.
because
Wah, wah.
I've been waiting for this one. This one, it's like we put the funniest at the end, for our special
The picture
present to
alone.
the people that make it all the way through the episode. But why did Facebook fire a top executive? Hint: it had something to do with Trump. Well, actually, it was a pro-Hillary group, but that's
anti-Hillary.
Palmer Luckey.
Yes,
Lucky Palmer. I always get his name backwards.
Palmer Luckey.
He's the Oculus Rift guy, and he was dismissed from Facebook. But so why he left? He's not allowed to talk about, and Facebook is not allowed to talk about. They have mutually agreed not to talk about it because
Because of the settlement.
Yeah, there was some court filings and crap like that. Some intrepid reporter has figured out what really happened by looking at the court transcripts and what the lawyers had to say. And so apparently, because he gave to an anti-Hillary group
$10,000.
$10,000.
We're not talking about a lot of money to this guy.
The people inside Facebook lost their mind because they were apparently pro-Hillary, according to the court filings.
Well, that's the Sheryl Sandberg thing.
Yeah.
She's a big Hillary. Yeah.
And so they had this court case happened, and Facebook had to give the Oculus Rift guy all of the stuff they promised him when they absorbed his company, which is about $340 million, I think, or 250, something like that.
But that was supposed to be paid out over time.
Yeah.
So he was going to work there. He was going to be the Oculus guy, and he was going to get over the 3 years or something. He was going to make $250 million. Well, because you cannot fire someone over political donations. Turns out there are laws against that. So he won the case easily, and his settlement was, I want everything now, and I want the ability to walk away from you. So they were like, yes, that's fine. But he actually didn't want to walk away. He was like, all right, let's put this behind us. I'm going to come back and run Oculus.
They were like, no.
And they were like, nope. Not only are you not going to do that, you will never speak of this. So yeah, it talks about this article. I'm gonna give you a little pro tip here. This is a Wall Street Journal article. Remember
this is good.
New York Times. Outline.com will beat their paywall, at least for now. You used to be able to use the Facebook external link, L.php.
I don't think we can talk about that.
Well, it doesn't work anymore.
Oh, yeah.
The Wall Street Journal got hip to that. But Outline.com still works. But anyway, it points out all the different ways that Facebook is pro-Hillary, and very blatantly so. But one anti-Hillary voice in the company, and they just brought down all of the legal, payload that they could against them.
The non-legal payload, though, because you can't fire someone.
$250 million.
They got rid of him. It cost them a lot of money, but they got rid of him.
$250 million later. Lord.
And it does, because we did the story about how he talked about at the time. Remember when that came out? It was like, wow, Facebook gets rid of a lot of CEOs. And his public response was, it's like, well, I want to do a high-performance Oculus, and they want to do, like, mobile crap. No. That's not what it was about.
That's not what it was about. We know. But he can't talk about it. Or he's willingly not going to talk about it.
Well,
Probably can't.
They'd claw back some of that money.
And that's it.
I'll support Hillary for $250 million.
We'll see you on Friday. Just because it's Black Friday doesn't mean you can't watch the Level 1 news, because we've prepared some special Friday nonsense for you.
They might just be passed out from turkey.
I don't think we can say Black Friday.
No, not anymore.
Savings Friday.
Savings Friday.
Are you going to be on the death counter?
99%er Friday.
The death counter.
Have you seen the Black Friday death count? It's a website.
Oh,
They do like the death count
For
every
the
year.
people standing in line.
Yeah.
Wasn't last year kind of a bust for Black Friday?
I don't usually participate, so.
I don't know. I do need some furniture.
Wait till the day after. So if you have to go, pro tip, go late in the afternoon on Friday, because all the crazy people are already gone, and you can just get whatever they've picked over. You might not get like the stuff in the flyer, but there's still some good deals.
Stink on. See, the thing is, I don't close on the house till that Monday. So, do you prematurely buy furniture? That's a gamble.
It takes like a week at least to get there.
Yeah, but what if something goes wrong?
You could work the deal. Actually, what might be good to do is do the 0% financing, because if you can get 0%, why wouldn't you finance it? You can arrange that on Black Friday.
I like to be able to look at my bank account and know what terrible mistakes I've already made. Anyway, we will be back here on Savings Friday, and you can join us. And we're going to talk about, did we do?
So much nonsense.
Security. We didn't do security yet, so we'll do security and nonsense.
Nonsense. Best part.
See ya.
Bye. Today is the 23rd. Press F to pay respects to all the people who got trampled during Black Friday.
Well, this is going up at midnight, so it hasn't happened yet.
Well, it'll be happening as we do
right
it.
now.
Yeah.
You could be watching this as your skull is getting fractured.
Our numbers are going to be terrible because everybody's going to be experiencing the trampling.
Well, they'll be passed out.
I think
from turkey.
most of our audience won't go to the. I don't think they're like wait in line kind of people.
But their families might be.
Did you just assume their holiday meat of choice?
I did.
And they're going to be doing some online shopping, so this could be good background noise while you browse the deals.
Yeah, put those
That's Cyber
headphones in.
Monday.
Just stream it. YouTube Red, you can pre-download it. Working on fixing the podcast feed.
It's a constant struggle.
It's a constant struggle. YouTube keeps changing stuff.
One thing that you might be doing, it's getting close to the end of the year, right? It's a time to be with your family, but more importantly, to sort of look back on the year. And one of the things you might want to do is clean up all those nudes that you've got on your phone, right? Because you don't want to carry those into the next year with you. You got to leave it behind. But here's some bad news on that topic.
Naked Security by Sophos has this headline. Thought you deleted your iPhone photos? Hackers find a way to get them back.
It's very disappointing if you take naked photos, or say if you have an unflattering picture of your dog and you're like, oh, my dog wouldn't want me to post this. And so you delete it.
Or a naked picture of your dog.
Oh, that's even more scandalous.
So yeah, it turns out the iPhone will store deleted pictures rather than actually delete deleted pictures. And you can't get to them, but someone who breaks in using an exploit could actually get to that deleted folder and recover those images.
Not good, Apple. Not good. Why you do this?
Well, it's the end of 2018, as we said, and you've probably got hackers in your network, right? Who doesn't? It's the hip thing to do. It's like HPV, right? Do you even date if you don't have HPV?
There are dating websites for that.
So the question is not have you been hacked, but are they still there?
And the answer is yes. But this article from technologyreview.com is the rare form of machine learning that can spot hackers who have already broken in. Darktrace's unsupervised learning models sound the alarm before intruders can cause serious damage. Now, I've evaluated several products that claim to be able to do this, and usually I'm very skeptical of these kind of claims, so I went out of my way to try to figure out more about Darktrace and what it has going on here. And there is at least a possibility that maybe this is okay. So what the neural net does is it trains on what normal network activity is, and so anything that is not normal, it will sort of call attention to. So it's not necessarily black flagging it. It's just saying, hey, this is some type of traffic I haven't seen before that's maybe a little different, and it should be something that somebody should look at to see if it's anything malicious.
But it could be a problem if they're already there when you install this.
Yeah.
So it's not, when you say it looks at normal for you.
Yeah.
It is completely unsupervised, which means there is no data set that they're feeding it at first. This thing is just like, it's meeting you for the first time. It knows nothing. It goes in, starts looking at your network, and anything weird happens.
All the traffic, all those packets.
It's like an old lady who lives on your street and just spends all of her day staring out the window.
Jimmy, what's with all those Russian people going in and out of your house at all hours of the night? It's like Russian people, Grandma?
Are you crazy? And then you realize Grandma's not crazy at all.
And then you realize Putin has control of your PayPal wallet.
Which you don't want, because he's just buying champagne and caviar all day long. Well, one way that this, that unsupervised AI might help you is if you have a certain kind of Broadcom chip in your router.
Oh, this is like dialing the spectrum to the polar opposite end of that. It's like we're deploying AI. It's like these people can't even be bothered to patch things. So Ars Technica has the headline, 100,000 router botnet is feeding on a 5-year-old UPnP bug in Broadcom chips. Now, the article implies that this is something that Broadcom has not fixed, and I couldn't verify that. It looked to me like that maybe people were downloading old software development kits from Broadcom that did not have the patch. And so there are newer products that are not 5 years old yet that have this vulnerability that have been compromised. So for God's sakes, people, update your router firmware.
Well, you could say that here at Level 1, we're a little bit out of touch with gaming, because I didn't even know this was even a game. I didn't know this was being released. But here it is, and it's cracked.
Ars Technica Hitman 2's Denuvo DRM cracked days before the game's release. I only know about Denuvo because of getting games running on Linux. Like, I've helped people fix games that I don't even play. And a lot of the time, the game works fine, but the Denuvo DRM is a problem. And so, like, with, I think it was Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5 works great on Linux under, like, Wine and all the accoutrements from Steam, what they're doing with the DXVK. Denuvo, however, in Far Cry 5 does not work fine. So if you pirated Far Cry 5, it works great on Linux.
Doesn't Far Cry 5 force you to use the Ubi launcher?
Well, the pirated version,
okay.
the people who if you buy Far Cry 5, you have an arguably worse experience than pirating it.
Well, that's true of all these games with Denuvo, because they have shown without question that you take a performance hit.
Yeah,
and the pirates don't have to bother with any of that. They don't have to pay. They get it sooner because this was a pre-release. This was pre-order people who got the game first. So a hacker hacked it, and released it before the actual launch of the game.
Nice.
It's just so impressive. You're like, surely they wouldn't do that. And yet they did.
It's funny because Denuvo will actually pay out, like, if that happens, Denuvo loses a lot of money typically in their license agreement for that.
Yeah.
So,
well, they usually, you want to get at least a week out of Denuvo. Nobody buys Denuvo thinking it's going to work forever.
yeah.
They're looking for maybe a month if you're really lucky, a week if you're average lucky. But in a case like this,
Hitman 2, super unlucky.
I think that last Assassin's Creed game, they got like a month out of that maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe not even. I don't know.
well, how about Adobe? Adobe is it's a product that a lot of people use angrily because there are no great alternatives.
There are
And
for some things, but
here-
not everything.
Here's one man who might not use it anymore.
Nasty Adobe bug deleted $250,000 worth of man's files, a lawsuit claims. So there was an Adobe Premiere update, and something went wrong with the way that it keeps track of files that it generates for the media cache. And it just started deleting stuff willy-nilly, stuff that had nothing to do with Premiere.
It was okay if you left the media cache in the default folder. But this guy moved his media cache to an external drive because he had a small SSD running his OS. It deleted everything on the external drive.
Which was all of his stuff.
Everything.
That's like the nightmare scenario. Weren't you saying that people were having to remake this thread over and over because Adobe's shutting it down?
On the Adobe forums, it is pandemonium, and Adobe keeps locking the thread, and
Adobe would
it's
never
bad.
do something like that.
really
They would
bad.
own up to their mistakes because they're a virtuous company.
Apparently, Adobe did offer to settle with this guy to keep it quiet, but he was just like, no, we're going nuclear on this. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Do you think they offered him the whole $250,000?
No, I think they offered him less than that. I'd say they probably offered him about $10,000 and a free lifetime subscription. And he was just like, I will.
Yeah.
No.
Have a subscription to our buggy software. You're welcome.
A tour of the Adobe office. Some t-shirts.
Maybe some of those pillows. I'd like to have some of those Adobe pillows where it's like the Adobe
I like
application.
the icons.
Yeah.
Well, they want like $50 a piece for that.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
So
Think how good it'd look in the studio, though.
I know.
they talk about I don't, what's the word? It's something fatigue. It's like when the news is just so bad for so long,
Battle fatigue.
you get jaded too. It's kind of like that.
Well, that's kind of how I feel about most of the news.
Well, that's true, and I mean the political picture right now for sure. Like horrible things happening, you're just like whatever. That's exactly how I feel about this story.
Security fatigue. Yeah, the headline from ZDNet is researchers discover 7 new Meltdown and Spectre attacks. Experiments showed that processors from AMD, ARM, and Intel are affected. There's a lot more. Well, there's a lot to this story, and there's a lot more to this story, and there's a lot more coming. So we'll probably have a follow-up story next week. But the Linux kernel 4.20 has a lot of patches for this from Intel, and the performance regressions are insane, like 30% insane. Well, it depends on your workload, but it's really bad. So I'm hoping that Google or somebody that knows what they're doing will come out with a set of patches to deal with these, like they did the first set, that isn't so bad in terms of performance loss. Intel is definitely affected much more than AMD so far in this class of vulnerability. So it'll be interesting to see if AMD holds up as well in this new round.
But you think this is anywhere near the bottom?
No.
I
Th
mean-
this hardware was never designed to be hardened this way.
Yeah. So who knows when we'll ever see the end of all of these? This is ridiculous.
We even found Spectre and Meltdown. Well, researchers found Spectre and Meltdown type vulnerabilities in graphics cards.
So not even the Monero mining is safe.
Yeah.
Terrible. You know what else might not be safe? This might be a little bit of a clickbaity headline from Popular Mechanics.
The F-35's greatest vulnerability isn't enemy weapons, it's being hacked.
I wonder if the F-35 has Meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities.
It probably doesn't have a chip that powerful on it.
It's too old.
So no, it's brand new. This is the new one.
It's
It's
old.
like the whole
it's
tank
new.
roster against Sombra.
These are the
Vulnerable to hacking.
the hot new jets. So like, not only these jets were designed for the modern military, right? So where we are engaged in military right now, there is no air power, right? I mean, Syria. They got some Russian MiGs that are mostly rust, and so this is more of like a air to ground weapons platform. So this will not out dogfight most modern jets. And a lot of people are like, whoa, shouldn't our state of the art jet out dogfight all the other jets in the world? And it's like, nah, we don't have to fight anybody that's got good jets like Russia or China. But it also is completely plugged into the battlefield, and it knows it's got full awareness. But the problem is you're letting things in.
Its computer system is vulnerable, it turns out. Insanely vulnerable. So even other people that are buying the F-35 from us, all of that telemetry is going to, Lockheed or somewhere. And so the people that are buying it are like, hey, are people going to be able to figure out what we're doing with our maneuvers and exercise since you guys are analyzing the data from all these jets? And the answer is, oh, yeah, that was part of the plan.
But it does have, interestingly, like each F-35 pilot has like a universal pin. And you can't hotwire one of these puppies. And it actually will report back who just started up an F-35. So, it's totally locked in with all that stuff. But again, it just creates another always on. And plus, what if we get EMP'd?
Well, those F-35s
Again, like the
aren't
tank
gonna-
roster.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what if we've got some in like an underground bunker somewhere?
Wasn't that part of the plot of like Independence Day? It's like when the aliens came, the only thing that worked were like the ancient jets that they just had that were borderline ceremonial. Like, we're going to have to go to the Smithsonian and fuel this thing up and get it in the air.
We didn't learn anything from that movie. I don't know if they have fingerprint systems in the F-35. They might, but we certainly have fingerprints on all of our phones and, that kind of thing. We use it for banking sometimes. And just how secure is the fingerprint? Well, maybe not as much as you think.
This is shockingly scary. So, like, for any of you computer science students in the audience, this is the birthday problem but they've created the birthday problem with the commonalities in fingerprints. And so these the headline is fake fingerprints can imitate real ones in biometric systems. So that an adversarial AI was trained with lots of pictures of fingerprints for the things that are in common. And so a fingerprint sensor can be fooled with a fake fingerprint that has all of the common features of like the most common fingerprints. And so typically, I think the collision, I don't remember the collision rate, like the normal fingerprint collision rate.
It should be 1 in 1,000.
Like thousands or whatever, yeah.
1 in 1,000 should collide. This takes it down to 1 in 5.
Yeah, so that's a pretty substantial. Fingerprint is not secure at all.
Now, one of the things about it is because of your thumb is round. This is not the flat thumb society. So when you put it over a fingerprint scanner, you kind of roll it, and it's not looking at your entire fingerprint all at once, and you're hitting it at different
places, yeah.
So the fingerprint scanner actually breaks it down into the quadrants. It doesn't read your entire fingerprint all at once. So what this thing is doing is it's putting together all of the most common quadrants into one like Uber print. And that's just the most basic bitch common fingerprint in the universe.
The Uber print.
And you couldn't target a specific person with that because, it's just random. But if you're hitting a system with, like a dictionary attack of fingerprints, you're going to reduce your misses by several orders of magnitude.
How long till I could 3D print some things I could put on a latex glove and go to a crime scene and leave all kinds of fingerprints behind that'll match literally anybody?
That's the other interesting thing this thing did, because the banana sticker problem we always talk about? The previous tricky fingerprints were like the banana sticker, where if a human looked at it, they'd be like, no one's fingerprint looks like that, because there's like all jagged lines and stuff. This one actually smooths those out and makes it much more realistic to the human eye.
So it reached round 2 in the arms race of AI versus AI.
It's the perfect fingerprint.
You probably shouldn't count on fingerprints. So instead of fingerprints, you better go to 2-factor. Oh, wait.
A leaky database of SMS text messages exposed password resets for 2-factor codes. So this is a screw up. This is the third-party service provider called VoxVox.
Yeah, VoxVox.
Voxox. Voxox.
Let's all just keep saying it over and over.
We don't VOXOX. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
But so let's say that you're an application writer, and it's okay that you haven't heard of them because it's really bad news. Because you probably have used them and you just don't realize it. Let's say that you're an application developer and you need to interface with the SMS. You have to go to a service provider to do that, like T-Mobile, and wireless companies don't really make it easy for you to do that. So you have to go to a service provider like this company, which will provide your program a way to talk to phones and actually send those 2-factor messages. Well, it turns out they keep copies of all of those messages from now until the end of time, which is probably, there's no legit reason they should have been doing that in the first place. So this is super disappointing on a number of levels.
Not only do they keep copies, not big fans of using passwords.
Well, who needs those?
Yeah. Why would a 2-factor company ever think about using a password?
It's not important.
That's really bad.
Yeah. And one other place where you might think that security is better than it is banking.
And most ATMs can be hacked in under 20 minutes. What most people don't realize is that an ATM is actually a system of about 20 or 30 different things. And these guys were really good about finding some little vulnerability in any of those things. So it's like, the ATM is secure. And it's like, well, the terminal is secure. But the receipt printer, it's like Typhoid Mary.
The most terrifying thing in this article for me was that the keypad and the card reader sometimes communicate wirelessly with the Windows XP machine inside. Like, what? We couldn't run a cable?
Literally just in the cabinet. Yeah.
Why couldn't we do that? No one can see it. So, yeah, they hacked them in a variety of ways, a staggering variety of ways, but no single ATM gave them enough of a problem that they couldn't overcome it with some other kind of attack.
Yeah, so it's like 20 to 23 minutes to hack most ATMs.
And that included, not only that was just like stealing your information or skimming your card, sometimes it was, give me money.
And the ATM was like, okay.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. But you know who might not be alive for much longer? Our children using the MeSafe's watch device.
Oh, they're going to get human traffic so
MeSafe's
hard.
child tracking smartwatches are easy to hack. And these store the children's location, everywhere they've been, their personal information.
Photo.
Oh, yeah, photo. So, they can really...
You know what to look for when you're going to get them in the unmarked panel van?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing where, like, you train your kids, don't talk to strangers, but then it's also like, if they don't know your name, or if they don't know who I am, or, blah, 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 you train your kids. Because if there's an emergency, maybe you're going to send Aunt Helen that they've never met or whatever, And this would give you all the information. Because I think probably the payment information's in there, too. So you know
Probably.
mom and dad's name, you know the kid's name, you know where they were earlier that day, you know what their picture looks like, so you can target them. And you're like, oh, hey, little Billy, have you just been to the aquarium? Something terrible has happened to your mom, John Smith and Jane Doe. Come with me. And the kid's like, all right.
Yeah, it's really bad. Really, really bad.
This is a Chinese company. So this is BBC. The researcher who discovered this, he was using that Shodan. What's the name of the search engine for Open Up?
Oh, yeah, I can't
I
remember.
think it's Shodan, right?
Yeah.
So he found this, and he was like, "Oh," and then he that was a way that you could hack into the server, because this is a service on a website or on your phone where you can track your kids. Then he got a hold of one of these devices. He hacked the device, and he was like, "Oh my God, there's no security here at all." So he tried to contact this Chinese company, and they just wouldn't answer the phone. I think somebody talked to him, and as soon as he told them what he was about, they hung up on him and wouldn't answer again. Then the BBC tried to get a hold of him, no answer. And then some sort of, oversight committee in Europe tried to get a hold of him. Again, not answering the phone.
Oops.
Where's your kid? I mean, I guess maybe your kid has more autonomy, but where's your kid going to be that there's not some form of adult supervision?
A lot of places. That's one of my biggest complaints. Or people complain about when you see those signs where it's like, children at play, drive slowly. Listen, asshole. If your kid might be playing in the road and you're not paying attention, suddenly that's my problem? No.
Ryan also told me that he wanted to get a car because he has to go fast. So
Yeah, and they're putting speed bumps up, and I want to get a low clearance car. That could cause damage to the skid plate, and it's not right. It's kind of nice in this day and age when you get a security story that turns out that it might not actually be a security event.
There was a thing posted to Pastebin, so Bleeping Computer has this article. Hackers say that they have compromised Proton Mail, and Proton Mail says it's BS. So there's this long Pastebin that's very long.
it's kind of a shit post if we're being
But
honest.
the best part is here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
The Proton Mail replied to this, and they're like, this is BS, one, because it doesn't work like that, but two, a closer reading of some of the claims, e.g. circumventing the Geneva Convention, underwater drone activities in the Pacific Ocean, and possible international treaty violations in Antarctica, should also cause a reasonable observer to draw the same conclusion. So it starts off reasonable, and then just sort of descends into a troll, and it's like, oh, I've wasted 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah, the TLDR there is that baited. That's all you need to know.
Nice.
And people fell for it. Just like you'll fall for these hot new handbags.
Fall? Is it because it's fall?
Yeah, it's a new season.
Well,
hot new handbag.
I was just going to say, Krista, and yes, I'm assuming your gender, but as the only female presence in Level 1 Techs, how excited are you for these handbags that change color?
Considering I hadn't bought a new purse in
Oh, well,
probably 2 years.
Let's talk about why you bought a new purse.
we talked about it last week on the news. So I carry my little iPad around.
Oh, your little iPad.
It's not so little.
Your new baby.
It's 12.9. It's pretty big.
I literally got a downvote on the Linux stream for mentioning an Apple device, because the Linux, the hardcore Linux people.
Are you going to bring that up for the next 5 years? Just casually in conversation, hey, Krista, remember that time that I got a downvote?
Just the one.
Yeah, just the one.
So here they are.
years.
This is not very dramatic. It's just a little bit
It's
of color
subtle.
change.
It's subtle.
But they got this, I wouldn't call it thread, filament maybe
Yeah.
would be a better name for it. It has to be able to carry an electrical current. And so it's not super soft. So you're not going to be making t-shirts out of it or panties. But maybe someday they'll make it softer. And it does have to have a battery as well.
And probably a Bluetooth connection. Paging the Internet of Crap. The Internet of, you're needed for a cleanup on aisle handbag.
A couple of years ago, I think the Met Gala? They did a technology theme. The only person who stuck to it was someone who had a fiber optic dress, and it was incredible. Imagine if they'd had that technology then. They could have had a very stiff, weird looking color changing dress. That would be very impressive.
You know what this would be super useful for, though? Like, let's say, for whatever reason, you had to walk through gang territory in Los Angeles. You could, like, based on GPS of where you are, it could switch from red to blue. And you don't have to worry about getting shot.
It looked like that just went from white to pink, so I don't know if they have that kind of like dramatic color change, but...
Well, maybe like, just from a raw
What if you just wear purple?
If millions of people buy that, it will be like, we will refine that technology.
You can't do purple. No. Don't suggest that, Christy. You'll get somebody killed. Did we cover the story? I think we did.
We covered this story, like, if you don't remember, we first covered this story, and it was like, and it was like, cautionary tale. But your stance on it was like, no, this whole thing is fraud. And I don't know how you knew, but you knew.
I don't even remember knowing. But yeah, this is just another example of why you should stay away from the GoFundMes and the Kickstarters of the world. So if you don't remember, the story was this young lady here ran out of gas.
She said she ran out of gas.
And you see they're at the gas station. That's where they took this picture. And then this homeless veteran here, this gentleman, only had $20 to his name. He gave her that 20. Actually, that's the first red flag. Don't you think 5 would get her home? Why would you give her the whole 20?
Well, she might have driven a V8. You don't know.
Well, even then, I mean, how far does she have to go? And so he gave her his last cent to get her gas to take her home. She was so moved by his generosity, they took him in and started to GoFundMe to get him help.
The whole thing was a conspiracy. Literally everything.
Yeah,
was made
everything
up.
was. It wasn't even just a little bit.
No, completely made up. They got something like $400,000.
They're going to the pokey for 5 to 10 years.
Yep, brought in over $400,000. They had a goal of $10,000, but it was such a heartwarming story. And so that was their picture before.
They don't look so happy now.
I got shaved his epic beard.
Her hair is brown now.
Well, she can't get her... oh, wait a minute.
Her hair was blonde up there.
It's dishwater. So, yeah, it turns out... Now, here's the crazy part about it. The homeless guy was in on it from the beginning.
Yeah.
But...
He is a vet.
Yeah, he is a homeless vet. That's true. But they kind of froze him out a little bit because he might have been spending the money on drugs. That might also be true. And they only ended up giving him about $75,000 out of $400,000. So that's not even a third, right? He felt a little shorted by that. So he sued them, knowing that the whole thing was fraud. And that's when it began to unravel.
Womp womp.
Not the smartest criminals. Pro criminal tip. Don't do this.
Well, speaking of criminals being stopped, maybe if you include the fantasy world, one man who was more responsible for criminals being stopped than anybody else in the universe, Stan Lee, creator of superheroes.
He died.
95.
He made it a long time.
He had a good run.
Marvel Civil War was how long ago? Like 2-3 years?
Yep.
So this is him at 92?
Yeah.
That is a dapper man at 92.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good there.
Yeah.
I don't know how true this is, but I had read articles prior to his death that, like, mentally he was starting to lose it a little bit.
Well, 95. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, that is a long run.
Well, and some people were wondering if they were, like, taking advantage of him.
Probably were. Because I imagine he was retired, right? But I'm sure he still got some residuals from all those movies.
Yeah.
He still had a piece of the company.
Yeah.
Well, he showed up in all the end credit scenes.
I think that they estimated his estate is worth about $70 million.
Wow. Yeah.
So
that even seems low.
yeah,
It must be like he must be getting like 0.5% or something.
he really enjoyed his work, and
Well,
especially early on, like he didn't own the rights to a lot of stuff that he came up with really early on because he was
Because Marvel didn't care about him.
Yeah.
Or any of their other
But
artists they work with.
he was prolific in every sense of the word, I think.
seemed like you didn't really hear about anybody who had like creative differences with him that much. He wasn't ever Me Too'd. He seemed like a genuinely okay guy.
I like, there's a video of him meeting with some people to come up with like comic book heroes, and he really did not like what they were coming up with, and he was still super nice about it, and he asked them questions that in retrospect, if they really thought about what he was asking them, that he was really advising them. But it was not non-confrontational because he was being super nice about it. I thought it was really interesting.
Well, 50 years of creating superheroes, you're going to get good at it, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, you know, maybe comic books are not to some people's tastes. You know, we are getting a little overloaded with the comic book world. But you know what is to everybody's taste? A good cheese.
That's your white privilege talking.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about the dairy being racist.
I love that's my favorite stereotype of white people, that we smell like dairy.
Now, Krista, we know about you that you enjoy a good cheese, but you are afraid of the cheese counter.
Yes. I don't know if we were talking about this on the Level 1 news program, but I went to the cheese counter at the grocery store and I didn't realize there was going to be an attendant, and he asked me a question. And I just rocked away. I was scared. I didn't want to talk to him. I just wanted to browse the cheese and breeze.
A literal real life moment.
I didn't say that. I just was like, oh no, and just walked away.
Well,
somebody needs to turn that into a green text.
Oh no.
In the EU, there's been a horrible battle over cheese. I don't know if this is the actual cheese. I think this might be a stock photo.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a stock photo.
Yeah.
But it's hard to figure out the name. So it's
cream cheese and herb. It was a cream cheese and herb flavored cheese.
Yeah. Spreadable cream cheese and herb dip. And I don't know how you pronounce that. Produced by Level1. And they argued that Whittle vegan cost.
There are some cheese snobs who are just getting triggered right now.
Yeah, and so anyway, one cheese tasted a little bit too much like other cheese, and they sued them, literally, over the taste of their cheese.
They lost.
Thank God.
It was a giant waste of time.
Oh, just hit the mic.
Yeah, hit the microphone. I know. People are going to complain. But yeah, can you imagine a world where taste is a copyright?
I mean, they do, like, labs make flavors and smells and stuff. I don't know how copyright defendable those are.
But cheese is not created in a lab. Cheese is like a cultured thing.
Yeah.
So how could you perfectly emulate cheese?
I wonder if this sets a precedent, though.
Is
a whole industry in jeopardy now because this sets
Well, they
a precedent?
talked about Kit Kat tried. I don't think it was the taste as much as it was the format of like the breaking off of the wafers. They also lost.
That's not allowed. It's too common. In this case, taste is too subjective.
And taste is very subjective when it comes to YouTube. And who is the top dog of YouTube? One man has claimed that, what has it been, like 5 years?
A long time.
On top, but his reign has ended.
PewDiePie's tumultuous reign over YouTube is almost over. T-Series, which is India's T-Series channel.
Long may they reign.
Yeah. So they've been adding about 3 million subscribers a month, so they have passed him.
T-Series sounds like a medical test.
We watched some videos on T-Series before we started this episode.
It was different.
It was very, very Indian, very Bollywood.
Not my taste, but it really is just music videos, which is funny because...
It's like Vivo.
Like, our music video channels, like, people are less interested in music videos than ever now, right?
Yeah.
Remember when the
MTV
hot days of MTV? Music videos were huge business. Now they're not. But in India... apparently they are.
I wonder if that's what's messing with the YouTube algorithm, because it's like, wow, 70 million people really want these 3-minute videos. And it's like, oh, I don't think Level 1's ever going to be able to do 3-minute videos that are coherent. It's going to be Level 2 text all the time.
Maybe we should switch to the Indian language.
I don't think any of us would be capable of that.
Well, speaking of taste, if you like taking a trip to flavor country, specifically menthol flavor country, times are bad. You might want to do some stockpiling.
Yeah, the FDA is seeking a ban on menthol cigarettes to fight teen smoking, but also flavored cigars and flavored vaping and that sort of thing.
This is, well, first, but we talk about this all the time, but this is one of those just bullshit, save the children. Children aren't any more likely. If you get rid of menthol cigarettes, do you think kids are still not going to think it's cool to smoke cigarettes?
I didn't know a lot of people who smoked menthols.
Well, there is a group that overwhelmingly smokes menthol cigarettes. Made popular by Mr. Tupac Shakur.
I was just going to say women in general. Usually, like, the people I know who smoke them are usually women.
No, it's the black community.
No.
And one of the worst kinds of white knighting is what the FDA is doing here. Because think about this logically. The underlying message here is that black people are so stupid that they don't understand that the cigarette companies are taking advantage of them by selling them flavored cigarettes. They're just like, I need cigarettes that taste good. And somehow they're not capable of making that conscious decision. So we have to make it for them.
Or children, or whatever is the case may be.
Well, I mean, kids makes more sense because kids are stupid.
All kids are stupid.
Yeah, but not all black people are stupid. But that's what the FDA would have us believe with this nonsense. But they'll get away with it. You know they will.
I just...
Are you sure this isn't more like, whatever, we'll take the menthols off, but at least we'll get rid of vaping? Is this more of a targeting toward vaping?
So they talk about... they mention several things here.
Because I know a lot of people of all demographics who vape.
Big Tobacco does not like the technology of vaping. That is known.
It is known.
It's arguably safer. Have we gotten good studies that said that vaping is terrible?
Vaping is only terrible when you have the vapor like turned insanely way high, and then you can get like swamp lung.
But
or if you have nicotine in it.
But here they talk about, for decades, data have... Isn't data singular? I guess it doesn't matter. Shown that the tobacco industry has successfully and intentionally marketed mentholated cigarettes to African Americans, and particularly African American women, as replacement smokers. Like they can't make a decision about whether to smoke or not.
That was from the NAACP. So, but the FCC or the FDA is like,
well, it is
DRM.
Speaking,
the headline for this one is DRM will literally kill you.
I was gonna say, speaking of not being able to breathe.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. It's like if you love your menthols, we're not defending cigarettes. Because if you love your menthols, you're probably on the short track to a CPAP machine. And that's going to be a whole new world of problems when you get there.
Yeah, I'm possibly alive because it exists. It turns out the CPAP machines have this really horrible draconian DRM. And at least in U.S. law, there is now a narrow exception for hacking them because, well, medical data. And so there's this whole, like, cottage industry around hacking your CPAP and calibrating it and tuning it and tweaking it for your particular needs because the industry just doesn't do that and doctors don't do that because ain't nobody got time for that.
So it's hilarious because the doctors apparently, like, they'll give you the CPAP machine, but they won't calibrate it for you. Even though these things have so much telemetry, like they have Facebook levels of telemetry. And if the doctor really sat down and was like, well, we should probably tweak this, this, and this, but they won't. They don't care. They're just, next patient. So there's CPAPtalk.com and apneaboard.com. And this is a community of people who will help you put together your personalized CPAP profile and hack your machine to apply that profile.
Nice.
And there's one guy, an Australian guy, who is hacking the DRM, and that's like just his mission in life.
Can I get an RGB CPAP machine?
Well, you're sleeping
for pro gaming.
There was an RGB CPAP machine in the thumbnail.
If you scroll up, there's an animated.
Yeah, I don't know if that one really
That could
exists.
be you.
It's like an 8-bit.
Yeah, it's putting magic dust in your lungs.
Literally.
I think Barnacules has one of these. He should get to hacking on it.
What if it's working for him?
He should risk his life.
Well, he needs the data to be sure that he's not risking his life. Isn't that the point?
Yeah, well,
He'll be sleeping better.
The woman in the article that they interviewed, she talked about how hers just didn't help her at all. And then this Australian came into her life and was like, oh, you have this special kind of sleep apnea. You should be running this profile. And it was just like night and day. So...
DIY medicine because no one else cares.
How long till they lock that guy up?
In Australia? Probably not long.
Nintendo sues him for $12 million.
They'll take him out the side door.
Well, here in the U.S., we're going to be enjoying some delicious turkey and celebrating our freedoms and conquering a new land. And none of you get to do that because none of you did that.
Well, technically, we didn't either. But
I think they had their equivalent of Thanksgiving like last month or something.
They don't get
fall
a Thanksgiving. They don't deserve one. But what we won't be able to enjoy, that you will, is the new kilogram.
Oh yeah, because we don't do kilograms here. Yeah. So this is big news because they're redefining what a kilogram is. It's based on really the Planck constant now, and they've got an apparatus for calculating what the kilogram is mechanically using an electric current.
A Kibler. Was it Kibler?
I thought it was just kibble.
Kibble scale, I think. Kibble balance.
Kibble balance. So there you go. The electric current is the thing that they're measuring. So the weight doesn't matter, obviously. But if you have a kibble scale, you can dial in this number of current and guaranteed get 1 kilogram that you can measure against. Now, previously we'd used Legrand K, which was just an old kilogram weight locked in a vault somewhere.
Yeah, but it turns out that has changed slightly over the last forever.
Yeah, I imagine it's, gets nicked and banged and oxidized.
I'm kind of excited about mathematically determining a weight because that seems more proper anyway.
Nerd.
What's going to happen during the EMP?
Oh, that would be bad.
Yeah.
It's gonna be back to the
Are you really worried about like weighing things down by the
because you got to go back to like that kind of exchange for money, weights and measures.
Or you just start bartering.
Well, you start shaving the edges off coins like in the old Roman days.
You got to knurl the edges. That's why you do that. Defeat the shavers. And you know who else might? If we didn't have knurled coins now, you know who would be shaving the edges off of them? Wells Fargo.
Because they will go that far.
This is unreal. Wells Fargo shareholders can't sue us because they should have known we were lying.
That is the actual legal defense that they entered, was that our CEO said that we were going to be more honest and transparent about stuff. He was not serious about that. That's their actual legal defense.
You would be stupid to assume that a deal this good was real, basically. Yeah. So puffery, had you ever heard the word puffery?
Nope.
I mean, I would think, if you said to me, hey, what's puffery? I'm thinking sex act. Right? Before I read this article.
I was thinking Pokemon.
So puffery, that's good. Yeah, puffery could be
puffery,
a Pokemon.
Yeah.
Puffery, it turns out, is the act of making a claim so bold in your advertising that people cannot believe that it's real. For example, the coldest beer in town. Right? Who measures it, right? It's just nonsense. So
the most honest bank.
Yeah, basically.
More honest.
The world's greatest burger. Who decides, right? So that kind of thing is puffery. It's a lie, but it's such an outrageous lie that you can't be sued for it. So that's what Wells Fargo is saying about the terms of loans.
Well, totally the same thing, really.
Yeah, right.
Because I care, if I have an insane rate on my loan, or I have a slightly cold beer, it's the same level of discomfort if it's not true.
I really, if that works out for them as an actual legal defense,
Well, it sets a hell of a precedent, doesn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah. Well, they should have known I was lying.
Too big to fail?
Why shouldn't they know that I was lying when I signed that contract? I can't pay this back. You should have known that.
Why doesn't it ever work for the little man? I don't understand.
It did that one time. Remember the Bank of America guy who changed it and got him to sign it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they'll let that happen again, though. Well, you know who else might get caught up in maybe some online dealings that seem too good to be true? I think this might be the kind of guy who would send money to the Nigerian prince were he to ever touch a computer.
The Japan cybersecurity minister admits shunning PCs and doesn't know what a USB drive is.
Not a proud day for the nation of Japan.
There he is.
Oh.
Now, the best thing about this guy is how incredulous he is about this whole thing. Because the reporters, as you might imagine, were like,
"Excuse me?
You're the cybersecurity guy. How could you not use computers?" And he was like, "Did I stutter, bitch? My aides do my computing for me."
I like to imagine he was speaking Japanese and then switched to English.
But he didn't, it's not that he didn't know USB means universal serial bus. He didn't know what a USB drive did. He didn't know the function. It's like, what are these things? And he's like, I don't know.
Like, if you handed it to him, he wouldn't know where to put it.
Do I start a car with this?
Well, the question from the reporters was, are USB drives used inside nuclear facilities? Because there have been security issues around those, like the whole Iranian thing where we destabilized their centrifuges or whatever, USB drives. And so the question for him was, hey, Japan, nuclear, are our nuclear facilities secure? And he's like, yes. And they're like, well, so do we not use USB drives inside the nuclear facility? And he's just like, what?
He's apparently in a previous press conference some time ago, they had asked him about some other tech-related thing, and he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's very frank about it.
It's weird, though, because it's not like some sort of niche technology or, something that's outside of her purview. It's literally like the most basic, even my mom knows what a USB drive is.
But so here's the thing about it. Here's like a little thought experiment. This guy goes into an office every day. What does he do?
Direct to other people.
Oh, that's a good point because he doesn't have a computer.
Yeah, he's just sitting at a desk.
He's like that Spider-Man picture where he's just in front of his own portrait.
Like, what do you do? Fine, maybe you spend a couple hours a day. It's like, all right, you're going to do this and you're going to do this and, file these reports. But then, like, if you're not looking at emails or whatever, maybe...
How do you consume information?
I guess they print them out for him.
Probably.
But that's so slow.
Well, listen, that's how he rolls.
We should get him an iPad.
I don't think the gesture UI would be kind to that man.
Are we going to have to get him a new purse to carry it around in?
A merce is the proper term if it's for a man.
It might be more acceptable in Japan. Well, we always put the most nonsensical story at the end, and admittedly, this one has nothing to do with technology.
What's not acceptable is in this story.
There are videos of this on YouTube, so it does have a very slight tangential relationship.
And it is from ladbible.com, so it's like, okay, questionable URL, but it does seem like people might be doing this.
I will also point out that those videos are monetized.
Well, they're offering a great service. So your interest is piqued. You're like, what could this be? Well, of course, it's boiling sanitary pad water to get high.
Ladbible.com. Yeah. So
And if you're thinking, what's a sanitary pad? It's a menstrual pad.
Yeah. This is what.
there are
well, I think
chemicals.
most people. You think our audience knows about this?
You put this in your underwear so that way you don't bleed on yourself.
Why is there a tooth shape on this one?
That's probably just extra. That's like an overnight pad.
Yeah, but look, it looks like a tooth. With a
Well, I don't know
heart-shaped
why
cavity.
they put the weird designs
like
on it.
the
I think
tooth
that's
roots.
extra absorbency areas.
Oh, okay. Right. So now you're thinking to yourself, I got to get in on this, right? Well, here's the thing about it. It doesn't have to be used.
Thank goodness.
But if you're a homeless person in the street doing this to get high, it's probably going to be
It
used.
does seem like, the kids who are doing this in Indonesia probably are using used ones, which it's a level of disgusting that we probably shouldn't even get into. I mean,
It's a new record.
I mean-
Level 1.
I'm a girl and I don't like talking about it.
no one does.
It's something I have to do once a month, and
It's one of those things that is better left not talked about in society. But to take the results of that, boil it, and drink the results,
it's just a
amazing.
step too far.
So the next question is, of course, how? How does this get you high? No one is sure. But the best theory seems to be that something in the pad results in chlorine when it's boiled. Do you think... So, you know how we have crappier cold medicine because of methamphetamine?
Yes.
Do you think that we're going to get crappier pads?
That's actually an issue in third world countries. It's like getting hold of pads in general.
Well, that's why they're getting them from the dumpster, I guess.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you're a girl and you're menstruating, like you might not have access to pads. Then you have to miss school for like a week. And so like it's a big problem. So they've been trying to figure out different solutions for it. And this is just probably going to make that even worse.
What you could do is after you use them, you sell them and offset the cost.
That would be popular in Japan for other reasons.
Oh.
With that,
Whoa.
that's the end of level 1.
You don't want to keep talking about tampons and pads?
We got some affiliate links in the description for VPNs and Patreon because this was definitely demonetized.
You raised an interesting question, Krista. Do you think tampons will get you high?
Probably not. If it's chlorine that's being released by this thing.
Why wouldn't they have chlorine? Well, I guess you'd have to make those.
Think
would have to be
about
much
that for a minute.
purer. Yeah.
Think about it.
Even then, though, like that's a part of your body that membranes and osmosis.
You're changing them pretty often.
Okay. Well. All right.
All right, everyone think about that.
And that should be good because this is midnight on Friday. You just had your Thanksgiving leftovers.
Now you're thinking about that. It's
just,
like when we go into poop talk.
you just dug into a big bowl of cranberry sauce.
If you want more of this kind of stuff, the $19 a month Patreon tier has a podcast where we talk about random crap.
Hopefully
Not related to technology.
Hopefully not quite. Well, I don't know. We talked about Hepe last
This
time.
would have been a podcast story if we didn't cover it on the news.
Yeah.
Shouldn't this be the begging?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. The hype jar.
Both of those. I don't know. I thought it was this because Krista was explaining to us about that
She's
technology.
She's red pilling us. Literal red pill. Get it? The crimson pill. All right, we gotta stop.
Okay, bye.
We go now.